understand properly can do in a better way. So we have invited, I'm privileged to have a good panel of speakers today, and I'm waiting for a very enriching interactive session. I want, support from each and every one of you. Please, make it a very interactive session. Please share your ideas and thoughts. We are here to listen to each and every one of you. So yeah, sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Neenu Rattan. I'm founder of the Social Town. What we are doing is we are building a technology platform for all stakeholders in the social development sector, since NGOs, volunteers and corporates who would like to support the different causes, and social entrepreneurs, and each and everyone. I mean, maybe you're an artist, you're an engineer, you're a doctor, we don't mind. Anyone who is contributing towards community development are welcome to join the Social Town. We want everyone under one umbrella, learn about each other, assist, support, and exchange resources. This is the idea of the Social Town. So we are, building a technology platform. We wanted to learn what is the real need. So when we started talking to different stakeholders, we realized that something is missing. So rather than building a platform, we thought, we will understand the real need. That's why we need more interactions. That's why we started the Social Town Talk series. So we bring stories, causes from different parts of the world, and so that we can have very enriching discussions that will be very knowledge sharing and inspirational space. So today is the third edition of the Social Town Talk series. So please, feel free to share your thoughts, and let's do this. And I welcome Angel to formally welcome the audience.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome Angel, the pillar of Social Town, onto the virtual stage.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. As we said, actually, we are not sure in which way we have to wish all of you, because all of you are from different parts of the world. So we are so happy to have you all here. We know it's a weekend and it's a day that we normally spend with our family, but still you have taken some time out of your busy schedule to be here. That shows your commitment, and we are so happy to. And I'm not mentioning each and every speaker because we'll be listening to them in very detail. So I'm taking a very less time to welcome you all. First of all, I welcome all the honorable speakers here, and we are so grateful that from your busy schedule, you have taken some time to be here and to share your experiences and learning. We are so happy for that. And for all the new members who is new to Social Town Talk series, I hope this will be a new beginning and we can meet in every month in the future also. And those who have been with us from the first edition of Talk series, thank you and welcome to the event. And once more, thank you and welcome you all.
So before going to the event, Rahul, can you help with how to set a virtual background? So
Yes,
quickly, yes,
yes.
I can see
Ladies and gentlemen, it is very simple. If you're using your laptops, you can see your mute button and the video button. Click on in the video button, the left side you could see, right side you could see a upward arrow. Click on the upward arrow and then choose virtual background. Click on choosing virtual background. There you can, there's again, there will be a plus sign in virtual background video filters. You could see a plus sign. Plus sign is adding an image. Click on that plus sign, add the image. Neenu have just shared. Neenu, can you share that virtual background again in the chat box? So yeah, what she will be sharing, she will be sharing the virtual background again in the chat box. You just download it and then upload it in Zoom in the way which I have explained. Then make that as your virtual background. Enjoy the day, celebrate the day.
And you have to uncheck. If you don't have a green screen, please uncheck the green screen option so that it will be more clear. So there is if you have a green background, you can select it. Otherwise, please uncheck that box so that you will have it clear. Yeah. I think we are good to start now.
Neenu, is that a cue to me? Can I begin?
Yes, ma'am. Can I give you? Okay, it's my privilege to welcome our first speaker for the day, Chandrika ma'am. So Chandrika Bahadur is the director of SDG Academy, the global flagship education initiative of Sustainable Development Solutions Network. The UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network works extensively across the world to promote the Sustainable Development Goals, and over 1,400 universities from around the world as members. From 2016 to 2020, she served as president of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network Association. Previously, she was the director, Education Initiatives. From 2008 to 2011, Chandrika served as advisor to the chairman and managing director at Reliance Industries, where she helped set up Reliance Foundation, a US $1 billion nonprofit philanthropic foundation focusing on areas of education, health, rural development, and urban renewal. Previously, Chandrika was a policy advisor at UNDP's Bureau for Development Policy in New York. From 2003 to 2006, she was part of the leadership team of the UN Millennium Project. She has also worked with the government of Jordan, with the Indian Institute for Human Settlements, and with the UNDP Regional Office for HIV or AIDS. She has prior teaching experience at Harvard and Columbia Universities. She holds a master's in public administration and international development from the John F. Kennedy School of Government, Harvard Universities, a master's in business administration from the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, and a Bachelor of Arts in Economics from St. Stephen's College, Delhi University. Oh, it's a long profile. Then it's our privilege to have you here, and the virtual stage is all yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together to welcome Chandrika ma'am onto the stage. I'm bringing her to the stage.
Thank you so much, Nino. And thank you, Rahul, for the introduction. It's wonderful to be here with everyone. I really do want this to be interactive, so I have a fairly long presentation. I'll kind of go through it relatively quickly. Nino, I'll rely on you to keep time and tell me when it's time to start wrapping up. But I would really welcome questions. If you have questions, put them in the chat as we're going along. And we'll make sure we leave enough time for dialogue once we're over. So we are here to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. Before I go to that, let me give a quick update as to who we are, our organization, and what we do. So this is just a very quick 30-second update. As Nino mentioned, I work for the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. This is essentially a network set up at the request of Ban Ki-moon when he was UN Secretary General, to mobilize universities in support of sustainable development. And we have three broad areas of work. We do policy research, we build networks of universities around the world, and we have about 1,400 of them right now, and we teach sustainable development. What you see listed here are some of our flagship publications. Some of them you'd be familiar with. Every year in March, there is always a news item which lists which ranks countries in their happiness, right? So you will have the world's happiest country announced every year in March. We bring out the report that does that. We bring out a report that ranks countries' performance on sustainable development. And one of the things that we found since we started producing the happiness work is that the two are very closely correlated. So countries that do well on sustainable development also tend to be some of the happiest countries in the world. And so that kind of makes sense, and it's a nice background to what we're going to talk about. We do a lot of work on decarbonization, so on a net zero transition to a carbon-free economy. We do a lot of work on land use. We do a lot of work on the Amazon. And then we organize in September every year what is probably the world's largest conference on sustainable development for students and teachers of sustainable development. It's called the International Conference on Sustainable Development. And I would welcome everybody to sign up for it this year in September. So that's a quick background of SDSN. What I do is lead the academy, the SDG Academy, which is our learning initiative. What you're seeing here on screen is a snapshot, a small snapshot of all of the courses that we produce. Everything is electronic, so everything is in online, and you can access all of it. Our goal is actually to create and to bring together learning materials on the SDGs and make them available to everyone free of cost anywhere in the world, and to do that using technology. So we have about 800,000 learners around the world, pretty much from every country in the world that are part of our cohort, and about 150 faculty from different parts of the world. So there's a lot going on, and again, I would encourage everyone to get involved and to use these resources, because we really do produce them for all of you. So let's now start talking about sustainable development. Why does it matter? Where does it come from? Where did the goals originate from, and why do we care? So this in front of you is a very simple picture. It's a map of the world. You've all seen this, you all know it. But I'm going to show you a slightly different map of the world now, which is this one right here. And what's the difference between the two? This is a map of the world weighted by the number of people and where they live. So if you look at this map of the world, what it essentially tells you that of the 7.7 odd billion people on the planet, about 4.6 billion actually live in Asia. And that's why when you look at this map, you see Asia blown up like that. Another 1.3 billion live in Africa, and then just about 1 billion live in the Western Hemisphere, which is North, Central, and South America. About 700,000 live in Europe. So really, when you think about the Sustainable Development Goals, when you think of the big challenges in the world and who they'll affect, this is predominantly an African and Asian story in terms of the impact of all of the changes that are coming about into our future. Why do we care? Again, we live in our little worlds, we live in our cities, we live in our communities. Why is it so important to us to understand what's happening in the world around us? The first reason is that we live on one planet. And so this planet has shared but limited resources. So how those resources get used all over the world actually matters in terms of what's available for us, what's available for our children, what's available for everybody else on the planet, and what it does to the planet in terms of using these resources. The second reason we care is that the world faces fairly similar development challenges. So if you look at countries that are at similar levels of income, you'll see that many of them have challenges that are actually common and that can be shared, and therefore solutions can be shared. And so that we have something to learn from other countries in the world, and we have a lot to teach. And I think that's one reason why we care about what happens in other parts of the world. The third reason is we trade, right? So we make things, we sell them. We not only sell them to our immediate consumers, to the market immediately in our vicinity, but we sell them all around the world. And that's one reason why we care what happens to markets in other parts of the world, because it really does affect our ability to promote, to export, to sell. We fight as human beings. That's also an intrinsic part of who we are. And so wars happen when we are trying to establish territoriality, either over land or over resources, increasingly over data. And so it matters to us, again, how other people are using their resources, what claims other people are making on common resources. And so that's another reason. And finally, the last reason why we care about what happens in the world is because we are explorers by nature. Humankind has always explored. We've always wanted to go and see new places, to establish ourselves. The world is a world essentially made up of immigrants, right? So we care because we want to go to other places. We care about what happens in our home countries. We care about what happens in our host countries. So we really do live in a world that is so tightly interconnected on so many fronts that it really is impossible to not worry about what happens to the planet as a whole. This is the basis of the United Nations. So when the United Nations was set up, which was in 1945, it was set up after the Second World War. And the idea then was to create an entity which would ensure that the world would never again see the kind of destruction that it had in 2 world wars in the first half of the 20th century. So it was pretty small when it started, about 50 countries. And what's happened since is that it's expanded to every country in the world practically, with a large budget and with a pretty significant structure and a complicated structure. There's a General Assembly which functions like the Parliament. That's the equivalent. There is the Secretariat, which the UN Secretary General heads, which is kind of like the executive wing of the UN. And then there are a whole host of UN agencies that have been set up to focus on different aspects of international cooperation and development. And the purpose of the United Nations is to bring countries of the world together to solve these common problems that we just talked about. I'm not going to go into detail with this particular image, but what I wanted to show you was that the UN has had a long history of thinking about sustainable development. And it started in 1972 with the first conference on population and environment and development, which took place in Stockholm. And that was the first time that the world really came together to talk about the issues of environmental degradation and their potential tension with economic growth. And in 1972, we're really looking at a time where, for the first time, after about 2.5 decades of post-war reconstruction in the developed world, issues of pollution became important for ordinary citizens. Their rivers were getting polluted, their air was getting dirty. This is also the time when a lot of legislation was passed in the United States, in countries in Europe, on cleaning up air quality, on establishing clean rivers, on trying to make sure that the water was clean. And that was the time also when a lot of developing countries were just starting out on their paths to development, right? So that was the inherent tension at that time. This was also a conference at which the then Indian Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, talked about the fact that for poor countries, poverty reduction was the first and most important objective rather than environmental protection. So it was kind of a setup of this and a recognition of the trade-offs between growth and the environment. And we skip 20 years later, we come to the Rio Earth Summit of 1992, which is when, for the first time, countries got together to really recognize the severity of the problem. But nothing much happened. So these are all times where, in 1992, China was just setting off on its great economic growth, or in the middle of it, rather. And so really, India was setting off on its post-liberalization phase. Countries in Asia and Africa were really beginning to develop steam in terms of their economic growth. And so again, issues of the environment were there, but they were seen largely as a problem of the West, not really a problem of developing countries. And then we fast forward to the year 2000, where the Millennium Development Goals were adopted at the UN, which were a much more broad range of goals. For the first time, the UN actually got together all of its member countries and agreed on these 8 goals. It was the first example of global goal setting at the UN. And then, of course, I'll skip over to 2012, which was, again, the Rio +20 conference, which was in the lead up to decide what the world was going to set as its priorities after the Millennium Development Goals target of 2015 had been reached. So that's what brings us to where we are today. One word on the Millennium Development Goals. These were really, really important goals, and there are several reasons why. Because first, they were quantitative goals, and it is the first time that the UN had set quantitative goals across multiple sectors. So it was an experiment. And what the Millennium Development Goals showed us was that it actually is possible for countries to come together to agree on a common set of objectives and then work towards that in their own individual capacities. So it was a really important effort by the UN, and the first time it had been tried. So when we came to 2012, and there was an articulation of what mattered, right? What were the important concerns that countries had? Growth was definitely one, articulated by practically every country in the world, but particularly low and middle income countries. Then we had the issue of environmental sustainability, which, in contrast from 1972, now was something that was affecting every country in the world, regardless of its economic status, regardless of its level of development. Social inclusion. This is after the financial crisis of 2008. It became very clear that inequality was rising all around the world, not just income inequality, but inequality along the lines of race, along the lines of gender, and that any kind of development model or any kind of development objectives needed to think about how inclusivity was going to be part and parcel of what the strategy was going to be. And then the final understanding and recognition was that you actually cannot achieve any of these goals if there isn't a modicum of state capacity and good government, including peace and security as an underpinning for all of this. So these were the 4 principles that were accepted by all countries as the process of designing the SDGs was underway. And what you see here is, of course, the day that Agenda 2030, which is the document that was that defined or contained or articulated the Sustainable Development Goals, was signed. And here are, as you just saw in the video before, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I want to say one word about this number. It's an extremely strange number, right? 17 is not a neat number that would be easy to remember or easy to articulate. And the reason it is 17 is because it really does reflect what was a fairly messy process, because you did have countries from all over the world contribute. And so in a sense, this is it's an indication of a democratic process at the international level, where different concerns were articulated, they were accommodated, and that's why there are so many goals, because obviously with 193 countries, you have a lot of competing priorities. And yet there was a recognition that somehow all of these needed to be brought together for us to really have any chance at growth that was achieving the objectives that the countries had set for themselves. Compared to the Millennium Development Goals, these are much, much more complicated also just in terms of articulation. So there are 17 goals, but there are 169 targets, so that's a lot, and more than 200 indicators. So this was really quite a complex effort, and it can become, if you think about it, a fairly bureaucratic exercise of just listing out the goals and the targets and the indicators, and that's not very interesting for anyone. So really the question is, how do we go beyond what the headlines are on the SDGs? And that's what I want to talk about next. So let's take a step back 2 years ago, right? If you look at the world that we lived in 2019, these are just some of the facts of the world that year, right? So there were about 730 million people that lived in extreme poverty. There were about 5.5 million children that died before 5 years of age of preventable causes. There were about 260 million children and adolescents that were not in school, right? About 2 billion people lacked access to toilets. Around 240 million children couldn't read or write, and there was an expectation that climate change would lead to, by 2100, about between 1 and 2.5 feet of sea level rise. So this is kind of just a snapshot of the kind of challenges we faced in the world in 2021. And now let's just look at last year and see how that picture changed. So first, the number of people expected to live in extreme poverty actually increased additionally by between 88 to 115 million, right? So we saw that there was a sudden jump of people who had fallen into extreme poverty last year. Why? We know the reason why. It was because the world was in the midst of a global pandemic, and about 2.9, nearly 3 million people have lost their lives because of this pandemic. But that's not all. During the peak lockdowns of last year, March and April 2020, about 1.2 billion children and adolescents were out of school for several months. This is unprecedented. It's just never happened in modern history before. And we still haven't come to terms with it. I'll talk about that a little bit later. About 400 million jobs were affected during the pandemic, and about 271 million people were at risk of food insecurity because of the pandemic. And we also saw an increase in deforestation, we saw an increase in wildlife trade, we saw an increase in the use of fossil fuels. So what happened last year was there was a health crisis, but what it wasn't was purely a health crisis. The virus, the response to the virus was an economic response. It was a social response. And so what we see is that on every parameter that the Sustainable Development Goals cover, there was an impact, and there was a strong impact, and in most cases, there was a negative impact. This image here is again it's a very colorful image. I don't expect anyone to really understand it, but I will highlight here, if you look at what this is a sort of state of play. It's a dashboard of how countries are doing on sustainable development across Asia. And you'll see a lot of reds there. And reds in this dashboard are not good because they show that countries are not making progress. Greens are good. So the dots here are levels and the arrows here are trends. So wherever you see a red dot, that is essentially telling you that this country has very high levels of challenges in terms of that particular indicator. So if we look at the second column here, zero hunger, and look at India, you'll see that the rates of hunger were high, and that is why the red is there. And the arrow is essentially telling you if there's progress or not. And this little yellow arrow tilted at 45 degrees shows that yes, there is some progress, but it's not great. You're not on track. You're moving in the right direction, but you're not going as fast as you could. This comes out of the STSN report, annual report on countries' progress towards the SDGs, and every year we actually track how countries are doing. But the overall picture is not good. This is a quick snapshot of the Niti Aayog SDG index report that comes out every year. This I've taken the case of Andhra Pradesh, and this basically tells you, this is a state in India, for those of you who are not from here, and what it essentially shows is the change between 2018 and 2019 on several of the SDGs. Again, where is progress being made? Where are there gaps? And you can see it's a very, very mixed picture within the country as well. So why is achieving the SDGs so difficult? The first is that there is a 15-year time frame, right? So the goals were set in 2015, all of the targets are 2030. That is actually very little time for the range of the levels of ambition that these goals encapsulate. So there are very ambitious targets. And the big challenge here is what we call the challenge of backcasting, which is that it's not enough to say, all right, last year I got an additional 5% children in school. Next year, I'll continue to get an additional 5% children in school. What really matters is you look at your 2030 goal of, let's say, 100% enrollment. Let's assume that that's the target we're working towards. And then you work backwards from that. And you say, well, I'm at 10% enrollment today, and I have to get to 100%. So what does that mean over a 15-year period? 5% every year will just not do it, right? So what the challenge of backcasting is really getting a sense of the scale of change that is needed every year. It doesn't have to be linear change. So it can be exponential change. It can be logarithmic change. That is a function of what we are trying to do. But what it basically tells us is that doing things as we had been doing them earlier is not going to get us to the goals that we want. So this is essentially a point about the fact that business as usual will not work. And so extraordinary action needs to be taken. That's the first challenge. The second, along similar lines, is the resources that are required for the SDGs are going to be significantly higher than what most countries have currently budgeted for these priorities. And so there is a financial element as well. We've calculated that there is more than enough funding available globally for achieving the goals, but these are still much larger sums of money that are being spent. And unlike the Millennium Development Goals, because the SDGs are so broad, it's not just the government that has to spend money on this. This is about the private sector, much, much more than the government, actually putting in resources, putting in investments into the kinds of goods and services provision that will help us get to the SDGs. The third challenge is who's going to do it, right? And this is, I think, where all of you become important, because the SDGs, again, are not something that we expect just government leaders and politicians to care about. These are citizen goals, and that means that each one of us has a responsibility in the different things that we do to think about how we contribute, and we'll come back to that. The other reason why the SDGs are challenging is because they articulate as a core principle two factors. One, the principle of leaving no one behind. And that means that when you're thinking of progress on the SDGs, you don't just go with the vast majority. You look at the most underprivileged. You look at the people that are least likely to achieve the goals. And then the success lies in being able to carry everyone along with you. So that is hard. That's hard because people are in different circumstances, different communities face different challenges. So leaving no one behind is a significant aspect. And the second facet of this is the intersectorality, which is that progress on one SDG affects the other, or actions you take in one area, on health, for example, affects what happens in poverty reduction, affects what happens in gender equality. So this is a complicated path to success. It's not a simple story. And then the final complication is that there are multiple jurisdictions, right? And what do I mean by that? I mean, some things work at a local level, but a lot of things work at an international level. And so you need complementary action at different levels of jurisdiction. There are different ways of thinking about the SDGs, and this is one of the frameworks that we at SDSN find very useful. It's essentially a 6-path or 6 transformations that we believe are good to achieve the SDGs, where we've really clustered the goals into 6 different buckets. There's the bucket of education and gender equality, there's the bucket of health, there's the bucket of energy and decarbonization, there's the bucket of sustainable food, land, oceans, and water, there's the urban bucket, and then there's the digital revolution. And we do believe that action along each of these, because there's so many complementarities within each bucket, that action along all of these will help us get to the Sustainable Development Goals. This is the multiple jurisdiction illustration that I was talking about. If you look at all of the goals, you see that many of them actually need action at the global level, but then so many of them need action at all levels, at the national level, at the regional or state level, and right in our communities. And so part of the understanding of the SDGs is really being able to articulate in our own minds which solutions will have an effect at which level of jurisdiction, and then choosing where we work based on that, with the recognition that sometimes we can do everything we want in our local communities. It's not going to shift the needle on the SDGs because global action is needed. And climate change is one of those sort of big areas. But it also means that there are things we can do locally that will add up if they're done at enough scale. And having that understanding is actually crucial to being able to succeed. What will it take at the local level? The first thing is we need to measure. If we don't know where we are, we don't know where we're going. So what we call SDG report cards, which is in our communities, in our schools, in our colleges, in our places of work, how are we doing on the SDGs? It's a very useful framework to measure progress. The second is to map these goals to very specific service lines, to think about what the SDGs mean for health, for income generation, for education, for energy, for all of the work that we care about. How do we actually make those connections? How do we identify needs and gaps? So where are the biggest gaps? Where are the greatest challenges? I've already talked about leave no one behind, but then finally to recognize that at the end of the day, it's people on the ground who are making the difference, and to celebrate and invest in our frontline and our last mile workers, the people who are actually out on the streets every day. They are the ones who are actually going to be responsible for the success of the Sustainable Development Goals. So what can you do? And this is where I want to leave us with. The absolute first imperative is to learn, right? Without education, without the knowledge that really underpins our interpretation of these goals, our perception of these goals, we won't be able to do anything more. So the first thing I would urge everyone is teach yourselves. And once you've taught yourselves, and I don't just mean knowing what the 17 goals are, that's a very superficial understanding of the goals, but really understanding what's behind them. So goal 13, climate change, what does that mean? What is the science behind it? What are the politics behind it? What are the technological solutions behind it? Really getting to understand that in a deep level is the first part of the process. The second part is teach others. Advocacy and education is part of something that all of us can do in our communities, with our peer groups, with our colleagues. So that would be the second thing. And the third is act. Once you have the knowledge and once you have a peer group that is willing to work with you, there are things to do at the community level. There are things to do in your place of study or your place of work. And then in your city as a unit of both engagement but also action, in your country, and then globally. All of us can work at any of these levels, and I would argue all of us can work at all of these levels. So when you're thinking about what to do about the SDGs, think about where you fit in, first of all, and where you are naturally inclined and where your talents are naturally inclined to contribute. But don't stop yourself there. Think about how those efforts as well as other efforts can add at different levels. And remember that the only thing that is probably not worth doing is nothing in this case, right? So you don't have the option at this point. I think none of us have the option of sitting back and sort of sitting it out and saying, okay, this doesn't concern me. The SDGs have been designed in such an incredible way that they actually do concern all of us personally, as members of families, as members of communities, and as productive citizens in the countries that we live in. So please join the effort. The websites of our organizations are right here at the bottom of the slide. But more importantly, pick what you care about, recognize how it links to everything else, and take ownership of the Sustainable Development Goals, because that's the only way they'll be met. Let me stop here.
Thank you, Chandrika ma'am. That was one big session. Please put your hands together for that one beautiful session. It was a lot of information shared. Now let's go for a few questions. So participants, you can unmute yourself and you can ask questions, or you can put down the chat box so that I can read it for Chandrika ma'am. So Any participant the questions? See, even you can.
Very good questions. It is, really, you have mentioned that point. It is citizen goals, ma'am. That is the best thing. So we are also a beginning in the beginning point. We are also a startup. That's why we really wanted to learn what such a wonderful presentation, ma'am. We will definitely disturb you more for more details how we can collaborate. I mean, to preach this. I mean, to spread the awareness. So we may need your help. Then definitely I will check the websites and what we can do. Any questions? Please, Rashmi, please. I mean, Rahul, can you please unmute Rashmi? Do you?
Yes, I am.
Hello.
Rashmi,
Thank you.
you are on. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. I have a quick question for you. So, the layout that you just shared and how we can get involved, from individual perspective, what is the possibility where we could get this framework set within institutions to begin with, where the 17 core initiatives that we could possibly step into? So, for example, what I'm thinking is we have institutions, so if we look at the framework of a state, we're looking at one particular state, and each institution undertaking one initiative and rolling up those scores. So you mentioned the importance of measuring. So if we were to identify each student capability for each institutions and taking up that one initiative and measuring up and rolling up those scores up, so wouldn't that be more feasible in a structure like this? I'm just thinking loud.
So I think that's a great point. I think there are multiple ways of measurement, right? Because it depends very much on what your purpose is. So, for example, you're based in the US, right?
Yes, thank you.
So we bring out, and we haven't brought it out this year, but we have been bringing out a United States SDG index report where we rank the cities in the United States based on their performance on the SDGs. Now that's a level of jurisdiction that is very unusual, because normally it's countries that are ranked. And the nice thing here is that you can decide that. You can decide at what level that ranking happens. I think it's less about ranking. The ranking is kind of just it's basically there to get attention. Everybody likes to see rankings, right? Everyone wants to see how far or how low they are. But fundamentally, it is about understanding where action is happening and where it's not. So
Okay.
the reason the framework is important, and I think you're absolutely right. And when you talk about institutions, I would even argue that in companies, and a lot of companies are beginning to do this, is measure their progress along the framework of the SDGs. And they may just say, okay, I'm a textile company. I don't have any interventions on health. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that's fine, as long as that they understand that, and it provokes questions, and it says, well, if my workers are malnourished, or if they're anemic, all of them, then there is an implication on productivity, there is an implication on health. But those questions don't get asked when you don't actually first articulate and look at where you are in terms of these goals. So I think that can happen at any level. It can happen in schools and colleges. So a lot of campuses are doing this now, where they're building an SDG frame for university campuses and seeing how does the campus measure up. There's a Millennium Campus initiative that does this. So there are lots of different ways of structuring it. The beauty of the SDGs is that it's essentially a framework for you to use, and you can use it any way you want.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rashmi. Thank you, Chantrika. And there is another question by Mr. Saurav Kumar. How can I relate SDG goals to social enterprise?
I think in every possible way, Saurabh. Look, there is the purpose of a social enterprise is to deliver social impact, right? That is the reason it's called a social enterprise. It doesn't mean that every social enterprise has to basically achieve all of the SDGs. Absolutely not. But you pick the issue you want to focus on, and then you measure your progress relative to what the framework of the goals allows you to. And it essentially allows you to showcase the work that you're doing. It tells you how much of a change that you're making actually contributes to the overall goals. And it allows you to be able to both link with other organizations that are working on similar issues because you're talking a common language, but it also allows you to be, humble about what you're doing, which is that, you know exactly how much is there to be done and the role that you're playing in it. But I think in terms of, we have to think about the fact that the SDGs they're essentially an articulation of important goals that the countries of the world have decided are important. That's what they are. The SDGs don't tell you what to do. They don't tell you how they're going to be achieved. All of that is left to individual action. But that is actually the beauty of these goals, because you can then decide what makes sense in the context that you're in. And this is also why, and this is a very important piece, right? Because the United Nations is essentially a platform for countries to come together and decide things. The United Nations cannot decide for countries. National sovereignty is still the guiding principle of the United Nations, which means that what is powerful about the sustainable goals is that countries have signed up to them. So all of our governments have accepted these goals and actually negotiated for these goals. So they are goals that we should consider commitments that our governments have made. And then how we actually, how progress is made is a combination of government policy as well as individual action.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. I hope, Saurabh sir, your question is answered. Adding with that, like in news organization, the Social Town is also a social enterprise working on SDG, Sustainable Development Goal as well. So next question comes from Chandrasekhar.
And I want to add one more point. It's not just, whether it's a social enterprise or, other enterprises, it's all about, we have to, like, as an individual, we have a responsibility. The, social enterprise, or it's just a legal structure. So every business, every individual, we have to, conscious about our activities. Now it's a time because, COVID is also added to the equation, and we know the struggle we are facing. So it is a responsibility of each and everyone, not just a social enterprise. It is just a legal entity. I mean, you're not supposed to use the profit, you have to put back to society. That's your choice, of doing the way of doing business. So,
thank you, Ninu. Thank you, Ninu, for adding up that. And the other question from Chandrasekhar and Jayaraman sir: are there any SDG goals-driven incentives and grants for social enterprises in India? Maybe let's talk about a global perspective, Chandrika. If you could answer this question, it will be helpful in a global perspective. Are there any SDG goals-driven incentives and grants for social enterprises?
I'm not sure if there are, I know there are. I'm just trying to remember which ones I can refer you to. There is an SDG fund that was set up by UNDP a little while ago. It wasn't India specific, but there was, there have been several funds set up at different points in time which finance SDG activities. I'm trying to think of one particularly focused on India. I know that within the government structure, the Niti Aayog has been focusing on what it calls its aspirational districts program, which is organized along the lines of the Sustainable Development Goals. But privately, I know of international opportunities of funding Sustainable Development Goal related activities. But if it comes to me, I'll send that information along. But
so if you can just send me, the email, the link for any website where we can find such information, that will be really helpful.
Yes.
Yeah, and the next question is like, it's not a question, it's about adding SDG into educational curriculum. So in a country like India, it took about 20 years to change the conventional education system. So the best option is adding up SDG into educational curriculum. Maybe it may take some more time, but there are organizations like Chandrika has, where we can learn courses about SDG, and we can equip ourselves. So I hope Upro, your answer to my answer to your question is this: you can have, let's learn courses from organizations like them, and probably it will take, to my vision, it will take another 5-6 years to add SDG into the educational curriculum, probably in countries like India.
Actually, if
And
I can just add to that, it's already there in different pieces. One of the initiatives that we are collaborating with UNESCO and the Global Citizens Ban Ki-moon Center is on what we call Mission 4.7, which is essentially it's an advocacy campaign to do exactly this, to teach, to have education systems around the world teach sustainable development, but also global citizenship, right? What it means to be a citizen of a globalized world. So there is a lot of work happening on this, and there are many examples of countries that are doing this very quickly, actually, which is to integrate sustainable development. We're doing a lot of work on this in terms of curriculum design and how one can actually create resources for teachers to be able to teach sustainable development, not as a separate subject, but as part of everything that they're already learning. So when you're learning maths, for example, there is no reason why you cannot use, the global temperature changes, the carbon emissions and what they do to global temperatures, why those calculations can't be taught as part of your math curriculum rather than as a separate exercise. And so that's the kind of work we're trying to do, so that in the examples that are used in different subjects as different concepts are being taught, sustainable development is woven in, so that children grow up with a very in-depth and very natural understanding of these topics.
Yeah, Chandra, can we take a couple of questions as well? We have a couple of questions also. Shall I? At this speed of SDG growth, do we think we can achieve all the 169 targets without any partnership with each other organizations? This question is from Rajkumar Arjunan from Chennai.
So as of now, there is actually, I don't think there is a single country that is on track to achieve all of the sustainable development goals. So we are struggling, and COVID has not helped, because what it has done is really, as I had shown you in those statistics, it's really showing that there's been a big backslide in terms of a lot of the metrics of the sustainable goals. I don't think anything, having said that, I don't think anything is possible without partnership, and I want to re-emphasize this point. The sustainable development goals are not the responsibility of governments alone. So there is no government in the world that can actually achieve them on its own. It is by design, the way the goals were designed, it is a partnership between different sectors of the economy, different actors in a society. And so what is fairly clear is that where there is a broad-based demand or a broad-based understanding and recognition that this is important to us, progress will be faster. And so this is also why it's so important to educate ourselves, because even for governments to act, they need to see that demand come from their citizens. So yes, it's very easy to go to the United Nations and sign a document as the head of a government. So, every head of government does that, and then come back and forget about it. It's quite possible, and it's very easy to do that. But governments respond much more when they are when they're held accountable by their citizens on the promises that they have made. So this is why it's important for young people particularly. If you care about these issues, then your support for these issues will actually influence your government's action, or at least should in an ideal world. But you can make that case, and you can demand action on several of these issues if they are important to you. So at the end of the day, we are all accountable. We can't just blame the government and say, our government is not doing anything. We have to act, and we have to tell the government that these things are important to us. We have to tell our businesses that these things are important to us. And that is how change actually happens.
Okay, Bhavya has a question, and Bhavya, you're on screen. Please post your question.
Hi, ma'am. Thank you for such valuable insights, first and foremost. I would like to compliment Neenu for making that point that it is always an individual's responsibility towards SDG, whether it is in any of the spectrum of this thing. But one doubt I have, ma'am, my social enterprise is focusing majorly on livelihoods, which can cover like the SDGs 1, 2, and also 12 to a part of it, because I'm dealing with eco-friendly products. Now, I would like to know, ma'am, if we as a social enterprise, from our purview of like the vision of creating livelihoods, if we want to also contribute to other kind of SDGs, like deviating from our vision. Like, how do we do that? I mean, if I want to do something towards water and sanitation sector, how do we do that under the purview of one social enterprise?
See, first, I don't think it is necessary to do multiple. I think it's very hard to start and run a social enterprise. So, first of all, full kudos to you for starting on this journey. I think there is a lot. The livelihoods question is huge. It's not just SDGs 1 and 2. It's also SDG 8. It's SDG 10. It's, you're doing so much. You're contributing to so many of the goals. I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think the important thing is what you're trying to do and what you start, the journey you've started on. Make sure that you are doing that in the most effective way that you can, and you will find, if you are dealing with eco-friendly products, you will find there is an impact on water consumption and utilization and how those products are made, where they are sold, how they are transported. So there are links that can be made, but don't think that you need to be able to address all of the SDGs through one social enterprise, because you are likely then, just given the logistics and given the operational realities of setting up and running something like this, you are much more likely to fail if you diversify too quickly. So first, establish yourself in what you've chosen to do it well, make an impact there, and then when you feel like you have made an impact and you have the bandwidth to diversify, by all means.
Surely, ma'am, because this is a bootstrapped enterprise, so definitely it will take a long time. But then towards inclination towards water and sanitation is what I have asked for. My personal interest, that's why, ma'am. Surely. Thank you.
Thank you, Babia ma'am. Thank you, Rashmi. And sustainable development is the pathway to the future we want for all. Thank you, Chandrika ma'am, for that big insight you gave us to all. And it's all about human effort to, in this rapid world, it's all about human effort to take SDG to the level it's intended to. Yeah, Chandrasekharan sir, you have raised your hand. I'll bring you to the stage for a minute, please.
Yeah, thanks for the connect and a great session going on. Thanks to Chandrika madam for enlightening us with all the SDG mapping. We had been shouting hoarse, so our throat becoming sore on SDG. In fact, many people don't know what it is. I am a SDG 6 guy, water and sanitation for the past 1 decade. And I would say to Bhavya, a simple solution. You just drive down your passion and make it, infectious to all the people around you, the positive infection, not like Corona. So what happened? No, people will start asking you upon how do I connect and do more and more. So the more you infect that positive or give that positive energy on what you are driven, automatically people will see you as a solution provider or a problem solver in any other SDGs. These are all interlinked. See, I have women, all 43 people working with me. So this is equality and other thing. You have to number it. That's all. You have to search in that 17 and what number it is. But when you work down the line, say like forestation, I have given my factory to a farmer who lost his rice mill. So my factory was put in the rice mill, I gave him back money. That is equal employment or giving equal social status or economy or whatever it is. So again, you go into that 17, you see a number. Number doesn't matter. You just keep doing what you do passionately. All other SDG goals will be running around you. So that's my call. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandrasekharan sir. Thank you, ma'am, for that big insight. Now, let me kindly, once again, let me invite Ninu onto the stage to honor our guests with a virtual memento. Here you go. Give me a second. Give me a second. There is a problem with my connection.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is all we can do in this version.
Thank you. It's like it's like being at the Oscar ceremony, getting an Oscar award. That's what.
Yeah, you need to imagine that you just came to the stage and Ninu have given you this award. We need to. All our guests are all celebrities. All our participants, everyone are celebrities. That's the power social town can give.
I will apologize that I will have to leave shortly, but
yeah, ma'am
thank
has
you
to
so
leave
much.
because she has another commitment. She has already informed me that. I'm so sorry if someone has raised your hand, but please do send your any questions to me so that I will try to assort and get an answer for you. We are so sorry for the time issues.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. It's up
Yeah.
to you.
Can we move the next speaker, Lopa ma'am?
Hey. So with all your love and blessings, let me invite Dr. Loba ma'am onto the virtual stage with all heavy applause.
Yes, let me give a short intro about our next speaker, Dr. Lobopudra Priyadarshini. Dr. Lobopudra Priyadarshini is an enterprising corporate management professional with over 25 years of experience and is founder of Social Ripples, a mission aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. She is currently associated with the Hinterco as General Manager Sustainability and Community Relations. She was awarded India CSR Professional of the Year Awards 2021 during 9th India CSR Awards for her contribution towards the corporate social responsibility and sustainability. The virtual stages are yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Nino. Yet again, very good evening to everyone, all my co-panelists, and all those who have joined to learn from here and to share their views on SDGs. Thank you very much for joining all of us here and to listen to me. And I thank Social Town for inviting me yet again to share my thoughts. I was just very carefully listening to Chandrika, and what a beautiful presentation Chandrika had given. So I was thinking this very rightly that she had spoken at the beginning of this session, so we can continue from there. So Chandrika has given us a picture of overall actually how SDG in the United Nations level and how the institutes, SDG Institute works. And what is SDG? Now, there is a privilege I carry. I carry a privilege that I work in the ground. So to materialize this sustainable developmental goal and work at the core, actually, who will do this? How do we get this sustainable developmental goals achieved? We have to work with people. And where are the people? People are in the rural part of India. People are in the urban part of India. So now when we are thinking of SDG, we are thinking of working on certain developmental goals. Now we have to raise that bar and work with the people who are on ground. And I'm privileged enough that this is what I do. I work, whatever Chandrika had said in her presentation, that need to be worked on ground. So what beautiful, I was thinking about Nino. Nino has very well planned it, that Chandrika will take care of the entire what SDG is, people can understand that. And then Lopa can, talk about how do we work for these SDGs in the ground level. So as Jonathan Porritt said, that the core values that underpin sustainable development is interdependence, empathy, equity, personal responsibility, as one of the speaker was, one of the person was telling here. Personal response, I have written some time back, individual social responsibility. That is exactly what is, personal responsibility. And intergenerational justice are the only foundation upon which any viable vision of a better world can be possibly be constructed. So evolution is the only constant thing in the universe. As evolution continues on our planet, the wheel of modernization have rolled speedily and taken people and countries in its fold. The faster it moves, the deeper are the cracks in the path by increasing disparity between the haves and have-nots, between various genders, between races, societies, between men, greed, and survival of the planet. Every small step by each one of us in the right direction, in every role we play, can change the world for the better. Alleviation of poverty is not only the work of the government alone. I keep on, last time also, if Ninu, you remember, I kept on saying it's not the government. Have we as a society, as we as an individual, taking these goals and understanding these goals and working towards it. In every sphere we are working, in every day-to-day life what we are doing. The elevation of poverty is not only the work of the government, it is of each person, community and organization. When we ensure that food is not wasted in our homes, in the parties we host, in the canteens of our organization, we contribute to the eradication of hunger. Exactly, very small things. When Chandrika was speaking, I was just thinking that these are the goals. What we can do to achieve those goals at a very micro level as well. When we inculcate the values of respecting the essentials like food, water, energy, environment in our children, in our peers, in our colleagues, in our organization, community, we contribute to saving food, water, energy, environment, and respecting every other human being. So thus, as an individual, we are contributing towards those SDGs. And very much, that we work towards them. So let us cook and serve only the amount that can be consumed. And I just wanted to tell that in this time of COVID, it has taught every one of us that how to limit our resources. Obviously, when there was, before 2 years in 1819, I could buy 10 clothes when I go to the mall. But now I cannot go to the mall. I can manage with that. So I have learned that yes, with this resource also I can manage. So this pandemic also have taught us multiple things. So let us learn that thing and let us work towards it so that we can ultimately achieve the sustainable developmental goals of UN 2030 as a nation, as a society, as an organization, and as an individual. So let us cook and serve only the amount that can be consumed. As I was saying, whenever there is surplus amount cooked, let's make the small effort of distributing it to nearby slums, orphanage, old age homes. And mind you, this works same for our office canteens. We do that. The parties we host, even the parties we attend, there are a lot of small organization entities working on collecting this waste food and disseminating or distributing it among the needies. This small act of collecting and ensuring the collection of leftover, the worth of consuming and distributing among the 108 people is serving the mankind. Actually, they are working on zero hunger as well. So just look around you when you are walking, when you are sitting at home, when you are working, when you're going out, look around you, what's happening. Everything is happening. If somebody is doing certain deeds of this nature, that means they are contributing to the SDGs. And similar acts we can replicate, we can replicate and also can be replicated by the communities and localities. Each locality can get together and have focus group discussions to have small vegetable garden in the neighborhood. Now in Odisha government understanding, so when zero hunger, we were focusing on zero hunger. If you talk about in the state level, what did the state governments do or did is they started giving, free rice. Now of late they understood, for BPL families, they started giving free rice, some free ration, Anganwadis, we get free anda. So we all who are sitting here knows about it. That is contributing to SDG of zero hunger. Now when another Odisha government has started a new venture under its Odisha livelihood mission called Mo Upakari Bagicha, that means my useful garden. It's a kitchen garden. The set of thing under MG and RG, they are asking you to construct the required landscaping, and the horticulture department is actually giving the set of vegetables to be grown on your in your backyard. Thus, what happens? The poorest family can grow, apart from rice, they can also have some nutritious food. So thus the country is also at the government level moving towards zero hunger. I'm just trying to give an example. Thus all 17 SDG do have certain examples. So for what I'm saying, member can have a small vegetable garden in the backyard, somebody in rooftop, somebody in balconies. They can vegetable peels.
Can you, sorry, sorry for that.
So I think I can speak now. Right. So what I was trying to tell that if we do that and we can reduce the chemical fertilizer, we can use our, we are peeling our vegetables. So this small act can actually, help us for nutrition. Also, it reduces waste. So the same vegetable waste, you can use it in your home, or you can use it basically, you can give it in the parks, small school gardens, or the compost, or you can create compost out of it. This also helps in one more different implication is it also helps you in your health. Rather not using chemical fertilizer, you are using, when you are using vegetable peels and whatever fruits or whatever food waste you are consuming, if you can use that, then you are also protecting yourself from a heinous disease or like cancer. That the community and localities can get together to install water filters in streets, parks, slums. Actually, what is happening, we are not coming together. Everything that we are doing in silos. Again, the one word I keep repeating in all my discussions in various platforms, that let us do a multi-stakeholder. We have to come together. We cannot do individualistic approach. Individualist approach cannot take us very far. I know we have to drop down our egos and our positions and say that, yes, I will work with other people. I'll take other people and get some work done. So if you can get together, install a water filter, a small gesture. I have seen in Delhi, I lived in Delhi and now I'm here. So we used to give water to animals, or we had a lot of Jains, or actually it was earlier done by religious. It was our practices, old Indian practices. Now we have to bring them back. There is nothing that was not there. It was there, but we have forgotten. So we have brought it back as an SDG to it. So if we talk about how can we have healthy babies without healthy mothers? So it is not only subsidized food, as I mentioned, or free food items that are distributed to pregnant mother, as I said in Anganwadis, but awareness is very much important. Regular education is very much important for pregnant mother. Government is working extensively for institutional birth. Maybe I'm taking you from nutrition to the health right now. So for which the ASA workers the Anganwadi worker has to be, educated, given that awareness. A thorough discussion has to happen with them. A visual pedagogy is very necessary for that. Another then comes to vaccination. Yes, now you say polio is almost eradicated from our country. That's again, it's a coordinated effort. So anything that we wanted to bring in, we have to do it push. And we have to do the pull as well. So once you keep pushing, sometime pull will come. Now every mother will go to Anganwadi and ASA worker and ask for the TB. Why? Because other children don't have this polio and other diseases through these vaccines. So what can be the better way of education than experimental learning? I always think. So now let us go to our schools. It is high time the education system of our school, each teacher values and imparts learning for life. Hardly nowadays we are giving life learnings. It's more, see, what we are doing, we are making huge universities and we are teaching, but do we give them a knowledge of circular economy to our children? You do reuse, recycle. In the schools, have we taught them? In our houses, did we give those values to our children in our schools? It's more than necessary to learn from best systems. Now, I had read a very good book, written by a Japanese author. So I just thought of writing that the Japanese schools made it mandatory for kids to clean up the school. The first thing they do when they reach school, and do daily exercise. Toto Chan was the, the name of the book, if I'm not wrong. A very good book, very nice book. How the education should be. A small train wagon was converted into school. How the child looks at it. We have to get into our child's mind. So it is not that big buildings actually can, inculcate value to our children. These small act that, I know, once I was discussing with somebody, and one of my friends said, you ask the Indian children to go and sweep the school for the first thing. The first thing, you parents will come and you parents will say, mere bachche ko jhadu karwana bataya tumne. You asked my child to swipe the school. It's not allowed. But what did this says? What did this do? Why the Japanese do this? It gives us discipline. It teaches us values of fitness, cleanliness, health, and hygiene. Actually, they internalize cleanliness and exercise, yoga as part of very existence of theirs. It is rightly said that cleanliness is next to godliness. So when we are involving our children at home and school in various activities, not only cleanliness, planting trees, catering to the gardens, cleaning the classrooms, imparting vocational skills, we are actually preparing them for life. Not when the pandemic hits, we ask them to wash our hand. How 2 seconds we have to wash our hand. We don't do that, okay? If we would have done this, they would have known every life challenges, what to react, what to act on this. So this can go a long way, nurturing the future generation mentally, physically, and surging their future economical potential as well. So now from Chandrika to very grassroots level, I know people must be thinking what ma'am is saying, but if you sit down and if you just kindly think what I am saying, and if we can, if out of 40, 50, 60 people, 100 people we are sitting here, if 2 people can actually go back and do at their own surrounding, then he or she has achieved one set of SDGs. Actually, now let's talk about the waste. Can you imagine how many, Ghazipur Mandi, if somebody is from Delhi or I was staying very close to Ghazipur Mandi. Every day, thousands of tons of waste is collected. And, from homes, offices, streets, dump it there. We have a system, waste recycling, factories are there. But at very home level, at very collection level, if we actually segregate the waste, then half of our problem will be over. So a moment to think about our residential. Nowadays, I think most of the residential complexes, it is mandatory that you have to have a waste recycling system. But if we take a moment to think about our residential complexes, it is quite conspicuous that water scarcity will be one of the major reasons of conflicts in coming time. Disease and death within 50 years. Everybody is saying the next war is for water, next war is water. But we are only saying, we are not doing anything in the ground. I had been to a very a school, an ashram, tribal ashram school yesterday morning, and it was because the 10th and the 12th is open in tribal areas. The government of Odisha has started has certain ashram schools for the tribal children. The water was flowing, and we have gone there actually to see how we can conserve water, how we can make the bore wells, how we can provide drinking water to that ashram school. And I was surprised to see there was a tap, one of the motor was on in the hostel and water was flowing. And the principal had called us as a corporate to see how we can provide water to that place. These are the small things. They can ask us to provide bore wells, solar, water tanks, and water harvesting structures. But they cannot go back and tell the child that how can we actually conserve water? So the simple answer, I would say, everything you do, everything is around us. We must conserve, conserve, and conserve. The same goes for checking pollution as well by using renewable energy sources. Now, yesterday the guy was telling, "Humko motor de do, electricity de do, give us electricity motor and we'll put the water." And I suggested, why don't you have a huge area, you have a building, why don't you lay solar panels on that roof? So all the energy requirement of your school would come from the solar, and the government is giving a lot of subsidies on it. So these are the small steps. Everybody knows it, but are we actually doing it, heeding attention to it when it comes to our need of energy for that matter? Can we put solar cells or solar plates on our roofs and create energy, get energy out of it? So the government also have to work at a meteoric speed by spreading awareness. This is nothing but awareness. What I am talking today is trying to give you live examples, what I am living every day, what I am doing every day for, attaining this SDG in my level, in the corporate level, in our organizational level. So government has to spread awareness, making and implementing stringent law for everyone, for corporate, residential complexes, offices, schools, educational institutes. All educational institutes should run on energy. The requirement of energy should come from solar or wind. Why we don't have sun in our country? These should be mandate. These are the laws which we have to impose. So thus, even slum can be roped in for spreading education, folding in SSGs in each slum to assure rewards and benefit. Thus, actually, we have to think over it. Everything is around us. Are we really going to look into it? So I was just going through a very good article. There is a city, there's a town called My Loy Nong in Meghalaya. I think they could not have achieved the title of being a cleanest village in the Asia without consensus, consistency, systematic, vigilant, and value-based efforts with the complete participation of each household. So going ahead, all villages must look into this village of Meghalaya and see how they have set an example. I think one of my able friend is also in this platform. I could see in the Sandeep Ji, who's Rotarian Sandeep Saxena. And he's pioneer in creating with Deepak Dwivedi ji, SDG Chopal. I am fortunate enough to be a part of it and, of Odisha. So this is what SDG Chopal means. SDG Chopal is bringing SDG to the rural level, sitting below the tree and actually asking them, asking each and every villager, do you understand what does it mean by conserving water? Do you understand what is by zero poverty? It means creating backyard bagichas. Do they know it? Bringing the SDG to the rural India is SDG Chopal. I'm thankful that my friend is here and, we are working very strongly and this comes under SDG Chopal. So we are working on the rural level on creating awareness, how these SDGs can be understood by the last man standing on ground and actually working towards it. The scientists, teachers, engineers, researchers, manufacturers can dedicate their knowledge and time to innovate sustainable and smart equipments to help society reach these SDGs, like cost-effective AI system for traffic management, waste disposal, rainwater harvest. People have worked, but they could, the scientists can create more and more innovative technology on how the fast solar, say smaller ones, not the bigger plates, better the batteries, to absorb the energy and conserve the energy. This all can help our environment in multi-role manner. So let us get together to ward off poverty, hunger, deprivation, environmental pollution, lack of energy by contributing our bit for meeting each of the 17 SDG of UN 2030. As I said, a joint effort from each individual and government and international body is required. And I think we are on a mission to change with a vision for a more sustainable and equal world. As Kofi Annan said, our biggest challenge in this new century is to make an idea that seems abstract, sustainable development, and turn it into reality for all the world's people. This is how we should do, and this is how we should work. And I hope I had helped all who are sitting here to understand the flow, how at the grassroots level we can actually work to attain as a country, as a nation, these SDGs. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a wonderful explanation that we should start working from the micro level, from ourselves. Very conscious efforts from individual side. I like that, point. You made it very clear, ma'am. Thank you so much. And Rahul, can we quickly? Rahul?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes.
Sorry, I had an issue. Yeah. So, thank you, Loba ma'am. I had a voice issue here. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. I'm finding some questions, and one question: how far India is progressive in achieving sustainable development goals? That's a question to Dr. Loba ma'am.
See, India, as I said, India is working. As I gave a very simple example, Niti Aayog is working constantly on this through the aspirational districts. So what is aspirational districts? Are districts who are still backward, and still, those policies and those help is needed in these places. So Niti Aayog is working towards it. As I said, entities like SDG Chopal is working towards it. India is yet to reach, for climate change, what we are saying, we have not achieved it yet. But I think if all of us will work, as I said, in our circle, a small bit of contributing a small bit to it, by conserving, by reusing, by recycling, then I think we are not very far from it. But we have to do it on ground.
Sure, ma'am. And there's other question from, give me a second. Suganya, ma'am. Suganya, she is a brand and creative strategist. She want to check how can artists and people with cultural influence contribute to be part of achieving sustainable development goals.
Very simple. You create an awareness with your art, because visually we learn. I think, if you talk about learning, visual learning is more than, your speech, your audio learning. We see and we remember it. So the artist can contribute, and the people into such sector can contribute through their art to these goals, creating awareness, speaking through theaters, speaking through various, Nukkad Natak. Actually, when we want to go into a village, what we do actually, even road safety, we do Ravan, we do Yamraj, we bring a Yamraj to the street, and we say, here is a Yamraj, if you're not wearing helmet. So everything can be done, and artists play a very big role. And, I think there are a lot of ways you can contribute to it. I think Sukanya is asking, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Nikhil, you can unmute yourself. You had a question, you raised your hand. You can unmute yourself now, and you can go with your questions, Nikhil.
Hi, I'm sorry, I'm traveling, so I'm not with my camera. But ma'am, great presentation and know-how of what you're doing, and I believe you're doing a great job, and we need more people like yourself and organizations like yourself in this world. I work in the water sector. We do treatment of wastewater. We would love to connect and say hi and understand how we can work together. But on a larger front, my question is, a lot of my potential clients, like the municipalities, the urban local bodies, they would love to use and get us going with wastewater treatment. But because water is such a subsidized commodity, in terms of the price at what you get fresh water, it doesn't make business sense for them, or it is not probably on the top priority. I mean, I don't mean to say increase the rate of water, but what I'm trying to say is that becomes a problem point. So I probably don't need money for myself. I need money for my clients and people who want to probably follow the SDG goals. Thank you. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, Nikhil, you are absolutely correct that, we have to understand the value. Actually, what happened that water was so plenty that people were thinking. I was traveling yesterday with my few of my colleagues who are from locally. They said, "Ma'am, did you ever thought that we will buy a bottle of water to, we'll have to buy a water to drink?" I said, "Wait, even to use to coming time you have to buy it. Like you may have to buy oxygen." So this is the situation, and it's a very bad, but as well, I told you yesterday, that girl is washing her clothes and the tap, the full flow, and you are asking me to create a water conservation, system there. So these are a few things, we all, wherever we are going, wherever we are seeing. So what is wrong? I slowly trying to identify with all of us is we do not say anything when something wrong happening around us, no matter what. We just pass by it. ठीक है यार, मेरे को क्या जाता है? How does it matter to me? I switch off my tap in my house. Khatam. So the teacher, the sarpanch, everybody was there. Oh, beta, band kar do. No, I went there and I said, beta, listen, why you should stop this water? Why you should not waste this water? So you have to talk. There has to be an interaction. Maybe I sound like a crazy person there when I'm going and talking to people walking on the street. But yes, somewhere they will also hear some mad person has said something. What is that? So things like that. Why do you do a kitchen garden in a backyard? You don't do anything for me. You get a nutritious food. So yeah, Nikhil, all of us has to work together in this. All of us has to be crazy enough to create this change in our society, in our surroundings, so that we can achieve the larger goal of SDG.
In a lighter note, we can say that we are progressing slowly, and platforms like Social Town is enabling us to share our ideas and have a sustainable progress with sustainable development goals. So there is a long message to you from Bhavya as well, ma'am. Shailesh from Shailesh and Sukanya, whom they would like to connect with you. And yes, yeah, I could say I always wonder how Loba ma'am is speaking without a single slide, and how she's tend to remember everything. Even for the codes, I use 3 mobiles to find the codes, and I use 3 booklets to write all my codes. But I don't know how simply you are speaking like anything.
See, actually, when you work on ground and you keep on talking, our job is not only when I'm working in this particular area. It's very strange. This place is not what we have seen. You have to unlearn, relearn in this place. So in this process of unlearning and relearning, I am only talking.
One simple example is, ma'am, you are just very much committed. You are committed right from the heart, which shows that I am not committed from your heart. Listen. And sustainable development always requires human ingenuity. Yes, people are the most important resources. With on higher note, on behalf of Social Town, we want to extend a big thanks to Loba ma'am once again. And let me invite Nino once again to the virtual stage to honor our guests with a virtual memento. Here we go. Give me a second. This screen is very fast than me. Sorry, wrong sharing. Here I go.
Thank you, Nino. Thank you, Social Town. What a wonderful session, and I'll keep waiting to listen more.
Thank you, Loba ma'am. And Nino, it's over to you for introducing our next speaker.
Okay, Gayatri ma'am. Yeah, I hope you're here.
Yeah, Ninu, I'm here. Hi.
Hi. So, everyone, please join me to welcome Ms. Gayatri Chauhan. Let me give a short introduction about her. Ms. Gayatri Chauhan is an entrepreneur working towards mainstreaming sustainability. She is an alumnus of IIT Roorkee and ISB Hyderabad and has more than a decade of experience leading sustainability, branding, and market work for large to mid-sized corporates and startups. She has been recognized among 51 global sustainability leaders by World CSR Congress and Economic Times. She is the founder of GAIA, the Earth Foundation, and Buzz on Earth, a leading hub dedicated to mainstreaming sustainability. She is also a TEDx speaker and a fellow of the Swedish Institute on Leadership and Sustainability. Mission Pragati, a pan-India social forestry program focused on cultivating multi-layered food forests for improving farmer livelihoods and environmental ecosystems, where more than 2,000 acres of barren land is in the process of being cultivated by more than 1,000 farmers across Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, and Rajasthan into green forest is another creation of Ms. Gayatri. Gayatri is also the founder of India MUN, a pan-India initiative for youth, which is a first for India and endorsed by the United Nations Environment Programme, with a mission to engage 1 million youth from India to champion the cause of sustainability and climate change. She is also the Global Director of Planet and Climate, an initiative of Ashoka to build the momentum and amplify the impact of social change makers globally. Ashoka is one of the largest network of leading social entrepreneurs and ranks among the top 5 NGOs in the world. It's a privilege to have you, ma'am. The stage is all yours.
Gayatri ma'am, with all your support and appreciations and applause, let me bring Gayatri ma'am to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the way you are able to, create a real experience through the virtual medium. I'll try my best to keep the audiences engaged and keep it really short, because I think these interactions are more to be, two-way interactions. It cannot be just some sort of monologue that can go on. So I'll actually share my screen. Just 1 second. Do I have the permission to share my screen?
Yes, ma'am, you have. You're the co-host of the program.
Okay, sure. Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Very good.
Okay, great. So I think it has started from the wrong slide. We'll go to the right one. Okay, great. So today's discussion is something which is very close to my heart, and I've probably dedicated all my life to build a lot of awareness and concerns around this cause. I remember when I was in the B school, people used to ask me whenever I'll introduce myself, because back then I had just completed my tenure with Wipro as a sustainability anchor, leading their sustainability agenda for India operations. And after that, I went on to do my MBA. I remember getting this question from so many people that what exactly is sustainability? And that's when I realized that if this is the situation, and this is one of the prominent B schools in India, and I thought if this is the situation in a B school, which is probably getting the cream of the country, then there is definitely dire need to bring more awareness, and some momentum has to be built in around this topic. So after my MBA, this was one of my dream projects to actually start with, that how can we mainstream sustainability? So I started with Buzz on Earth. It started more like a media platform, because as I said, the challenge was to bring more and more awareness, how we can get more and more people involved. So the mission with which we started off, right now Buzz on Earth is not just a media platform, it is more of a sustainability hub. But I'm just taking you through the order in which it kind of evolved. So we believe that there are a lot of naysayers who don't even believe in sustainability, and they will say that we are such a tiny speck in this universe. How can we create any sort of change? How are we responsible for global warming? No, I cannot do anything. If I waste 1 bucket of extra water, it is not going to bring water crisis in the world. There are a lot of people who actually think like this, and that is one of the fundamental reasons why behavioral change is the biggest thing to crack. So we thought that this is the first thing to tackle, that how can we convert naysayers into believers. The second mission that we took upon was converting these believers. So there are a lot of people, and since all the people are attending this workshop, I'm sure they are part of the believers community, and that is why you're here. And I'm sure most of you are already doing some amazing work in your respective field. But we realize that a lot of people who think that, yeah, this is a good cause and we have to do something about it. And especially I'm talking about millennials and zillennials, the next generation that is coming on board. So they really want to do something for the planet, for climate change, to abate the climate crisis. And there are no opportunities. They don't have the right kind of avenues, there are no platforms, and they don't know what to do about it. So that was the second mission that we took, that how can we make the believers take some action and effective action, which will lead to some tangible results. And the third was all those who are taking action, whether they are taking action at an individual level, at a community level, or at an NGO level, or at an organizational or corporate level, we realize that it is the time to give a pat on their back and make them look visible, make their best practices look visible, and share that best practice with everybody. So with this mindset, we started off with Buzz on Earth. And the approach that we took. So here in this slide, as you can see, there are a lot of circles that will tell you what kind of issues we are trying to solve through the work that we are doing. So currently, Buzz on Earth is a sustainability hub, and through which we are leveraging the power of media, technology, and communities to mainstream sustainability, to make sure that everybody on this planet is part of the solution and is not part of the problem. So first one, as I said, is the media, through which we are doing a lot of thought leadership, content leadership. We are trying to do videos, podcasts, and blogs, articles, and massive content is being generated. So the whole idea is to get more and more people to talk about it, get more and more best practices to be shared, and get the voice of millennials and zillennials reach the maximum number of people. Second is Buzz on Earth Academy, wherein this is our dream that we should make sustainability as lucrative a career choice as, for example, a job in McKinsey or a job in World Bank. Right? So people generally dream of a career option, like whenever you have a kid who is entering class 11 or 12, you start giving a dream that, okay, my son will be an engineer, doctor, blah, blah, right? And everybody after engineering or anything will want to go for an MBA degree or want to take a management job, a corporate flash career. So we realize that sustainability is considered a little, greenwashing kind of perception. People think that it is good, but this is more like good to have, and this is not a must-have kind of career option. So we want to change that perception, because in every single business, this is going to be integrated in the DNA of the business, and it is as important as anything else. So that is the mission of Buzz on Earth Academy. So we do a lot of upskilling courses, and we are trying to create mini Coursera and Udemy for sustainability, through which mid-level professionals and students can actually carve out a career in sustainability. Then the third is India Model United Nations, which is our program for the youth, where we not only groom them, but also empower them to raise their voices and get themselves heard and do some meaningful work in the field of climate action. Then Mission Prakriti, which is our social forestry initiative. And the whole idea behind this initiative is to break the intergenerational poverty cycles for the farmers. And it is, so when I talk about all these initiatives, I'm sure since you know these 17 sustainable development goals, and all of these 17 goals are interlinked, we are actually working through this interlinkage amongst these 5 areas of work that we have. And so Mission Prakriti is a socio-ecological solution through which we are trying to use forests as a means to raise prosperity for not only the farmers, but also every other stakeholder involved in the process. And this is such a beautiful initiative. I'll talk to you more about that as we go forward. And the fifth one is actually Tag Me Green, which is a mobile application. And the whole idea is this: how can we promote ethical consumption? First of all, I'm personally dead against consumption in first place. We should be trying to reduce our consumption as much as possible. And then whenever you have to consume, try to see the most ethical choices that you have in front of you. So these are the 5 areas in which we are working. And I'll very quickly take you through these slides, and then we can interact more, which will be more useful towards the end. So this one is the Buzz on Earth content, thought leadership, and everything. So this is the media side, which this is just a preview that I'm just trying to show you what kind of things we do. We are trying to give people tips about going plastic free, about having day-to-day practices through which they can live a more sustainable lifestyle. And we're bringing in news, innovation, technology, whatever is happening in the world of sustainability, we bring that to you on a platter and just make that as a daily dose of your sustainability. Then this is India Model United Nations. And as I said, that the massive power, especially for India, it really makes a lot of sense. And we have got the backing and encouragement from senior professionals from United Nations. And the idea is that India has close to 260 million plus students, which together, if we try to talk about that student power, youth power, we can really bring massive difference. And this is the difference that we are trying to tap into. And our mission for this year is to engage 1 million students into climate change action. And this is the first ever Model United Nations that is a pan-India level United MUN. Otherwise, you would have seen the localized versions of the same. Then this is our mobile application, which is not yet formally launched because we did a soft launch last year, leap year, 29th of February last year. But then soon after that, we were hit by Corona and we had to roll it back. But we will be back with it formally soon. So this is a mobile application through which actually you can create a sustainability score for the product that you're trying to choose. For example, if you go to buy a pair of jeans, you will be able to see what is the health score for that and what is the eco score for that. So other than price and quality of the material, you will have one more parameter to make that conscious choice. So that's what we call ethical consumption, that you will know by buying this product how much CO2 emissions you have saved or you have created. So you will be able to make that rational choice based on the sustainability score. Then this is Mission Prakriti. As I said, this is a forestry initiative that we have, and we do it in a very, very specialized manner. That is a 7-layered vertical forest in which we have tubers, climbers, creepers, all sorts of species. And the hero of the entire ecosystem is vetiver. That's a grass which actually fixes nitrogen and creates an ecosystem that makes the forest very dense. And within a span of 3 years, you can see the second picture. This is a 3-year-old forest. It is pretty dense and you don't really feel that you're not entering. The whole idea is that sun's rays should not touch the ground. So that is the kind of density we are trying to bring in. And it converts even barren lands into fertile lands. So we are working with several farmers, close to 1,000 farmers across Rajasthan, MP, and some parts of Karnataka, wherein we are trying to convert close to 2,000 acres of land into these forests. And idea is to make these farmers more prosperous. And Indian government's one of the agenda is to double the farmers' income. So this is one method by which we are not only doubling, but it is more than doubling the farmers' income. And the return on investment is so good that even investors are queuing up to be participating in this project. So this is some of the other ecological benefits, which are the consequences of that. So this is one slide that actually I had presented on Water Day. And this is very important for you to understand the totality of how these goals intersect with each other. So while we are talking about raising a forest, you can say that you are enhancing the biodiversity, but at the same time, you're also trying to rejuvenate the water sources. You are trying to rebalance the water cycle. So all of these things really make it very, 360-degree beneficial approach that we're able to take. And forested watersheds are one of the most important factors in promoting the supply of fresh water across the world. And forest ecosystems are very, very important in order to regulate the water cycles. So this slide actually is self-explanatory. I don't have to go deeper into that. But the idea is that we have to ensure that these forests are able to retain water in the soil. And one important part of it is the carbon that is trapped in the soil surface. You know that most of the water that is coming that is coming from the rains is either going into runoff or it is going into the aquifers. But 70%, close to 70% of water is actually trapped in the carbon content which is in the soil. So that totally depends on the amount of carbon content we are able to retain in the soil. And to retain that carbon content, it is very important to have forest ecosystems which are enhancing that carbon content in the soil layer. So these are some of the methods. And so one of the other benefits of this forest is that we get a lot of healthy products. You know that in the COVID environment, everybody is talking about giloy and aloe vera, neem, and things like that. So we get a lot of healthy products from these forests, and these are far, far more superior than organic products because there is no tilling, no artificial manure, there is no chemical fertilizer, there is nothing, no pesticide, nothing at all which goes into the forest. It is purely mimicking the way things grow in a forest. So we actually get these products and we sell it on our platform, and that gives a good connect between communities and the farmers, and they can get these products at very reasonable prices. So this is all about this presentation, and I'm very keen to take questions if you have any, and so that this conversation is more interactive. So is anybody facilitating?
Thank you, Gayatri. Thank you, Gayatri. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation.
Any
So
quick questions, please, anyone?
any quick questions you can unmute and you can ask, or what I shall suggest is you can write the questions directly to Neenu, and Neenu can share the questions with the speakers. That's what I suggest. But if there are quick questions, you can unmute and speak.
Gayatri madam, I have a question for you.
May I know who is speaking?
I'm Chandrasekhar here.
Okay.
Okay. The app you have developed for shopping, the rural products and other thing is very interesting. I'd only request you to make it multilingual, vernacular. Just have a drop down button, at least the languages in the Indian currency. Able to at least pick it up and say, so I don't know any other language other than my mother tongue. So I'll be able to see my mother tongue and then I can place orders. And if it is very rural centric, I think it will be an alternative for these big guys like Flipkart and other thing. But 80% of the Indians are in the rural space. So I would love to buy in my own mother tongue. Please add it, and I would also add my product into your kitty.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are you having some product business into eco products?
We make electricity-free water purifiers. We have reached close to 4 lakh household across India without any traders. We only sell through the self-help group women and NGOs.
So we do have this Bazaar shop that you can even, without going through the app, you can actually promote your products through the shop.
Yeah, I already sent you a mail, madam. Already dropped the mail.
Okay.
Thank you. But I would love to have that vernacular version. That would be nice.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a very good point. And we must have that. But currently, since, as I said, app is yet to be launched formally, because we did one soft launch and after that Corona hit, so we have to again do the launch. So we are waiting for the right opportunity to do that.
I have good network with the farmers here in Tamil Nadu. I can easily give you another 100 more products to make it more profound.
Sure, definitely.
Thank you, Chandrasekharan sir. You positively giving a lot of feedbacks and a lot of ideas. Thank you for being with us here. And thank you, Gayatri ma'am, for having a great insight with us today. Once again, let me bring down Neenu to the virtual stage. Neenu, I request you to hand over a virtual memento to our guest.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Gayatri. I will share all the details with the participants, ma'am, so that they can connect.
Yeah, sure. I do see the prompts in the chat section.
Yes. If you can, just share your email ID, they can connect with you if you're okay with that.
Sure, I'll drop it here in the chat section.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. Because of the time constraint, we cannot take all patients.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gayatri ma'am, and Neenu, it's your turn to introduce our next speaker.
Yes, Doreen, you here? Doreen,
yes, she's here.
Okay, so let's welcome our next speaker, Doreen Gift-Mujinko. Doreen is a telecommunications engineer from Uganda. She is currently doing her master's at Makerere University. She is functioning as a Sustainable Development Goals Coordinator with Sustainable Development Solutions Network U. She's highly passionate about enabling professionals and university students to do more for the community and change the lives around them for a sustainable earth and realizing each individual role in the 2030 agenda. So please welcome.
So thank you, Ninu. With all your love and applause, let me bring Doreen ma'am to our virtual stage.
Doreen, the virtual stage is all yours, and I am very interested to learn about how you are, imparting this knowledge and how you're working with your peer group, to get aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals so that we can copy the same here as well. So the stage is all yours.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, good evening for everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. I was really honored to receive an email for the invitation. Sustainable development is a topic I enjoy discussing. I can say it's a delicacy. And I'm wondering if we are going to have the slides I shared on the screen. Is that possible?
Yes. You're focused now. You can share your screen and
No, I cannot share my screen actually. I'm using a phone. I counted on the fact that
let me share my screen. And is that okay?
Yes. It's
everyone can see my screen.
Yes. We can see your screen, but request you to go full screen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, something is happening. Yes.
So yeah, I am Doreen, as it has already been said. I am a telecom engineer and I'm so glad to be here. I look at sustainable development as a mission for everyone, a mission for the whole world. And I'm so happy that different people in different areas are actually moving towards this, and that is the right direction. Can I have the next slide?
Yes.
So many of us are aware that the genesis of the Sustainable Development Goals was from the Millennium Development Goals. These were 18. These were 8 only, and they were mainly focused on the low developed countries, well, much like Africa, like, for example, the one I come from. And they were goals for about 15 years. It was a strategy of around 15 years to eradicate poverty, to cap the maternal death, to cap the death by HIV, to get people to work, to improve people's lives in low developed countries. And this agenda was to be funded by the richer countries. Then can we be on the third slide, please? The next one. Yes. So the 8 goals were not so inclusive. However, they managed to create big impacts. And at least this was a baseline for all countries in the United Nations to realize actually that if we all have a global goal, we can achieve better and we can improve people's lives. So much as the low developed countries had problems like hunger, like death, like HIV, even the well-developed countries have other problems, probably climate change that causes disasters and still people are dying. They also have hunger, not because they are poor, but because they don't exactly have sustainable farming. They waste a lot. So this was like a motivation in 2015 to come up with, on the revision of how the Millennium Development Goals was. Around between 2013 and 2015 is how exactly the genesis of the Sustainable Development Goals came in, with the aim of leaving no one behind, with the aim of having the whole world move towards one particular vision up to 2030, and so that everyone in every corner can actually benefit. Can we do the next slide, please? Yes, so the transition really was, we can say that the Millennium Development Goals, most of them maybe could not have been achieved as how they were envisioned to be achieved, but at least they created a stepping stone, of which work could actually be completed. So most of them are actually featured into the different 17 goals that are later brought on board. So they were widened 17 to have everyone on board. And that is why whenever we're mentioning them, we claim to leave no one behind, and we make sure no one is left behind. And so these 17 goals are actually interlinked. You cannot achieve one and leave 17. You cannot achieve 8 and leave 5. They are all together. When you achieve one way or another, you are achieving another one. That is why all the 17 should be all our responsibility, so that we can actually be able to move together. Can we have the next slide, please? Yes, those are the 17 goals. I really believe that each of us should probably write them down somewhere. We have some sneak notes we put around in our bedrooms, in our lives, in our offices, in our wherever, even if you don't have a post like I do of the coordinator part, you should have them everywhere on your wall. It should be something that reminds you that, you know what, today I have to be healthy. There are some people hungry out there. How can I help? There's conservation. How can I conserve some water so that I can save the life underwater? They need to be pinned somewhere. It should be a lifestyle, because that is what it was analyzed. And if you look at their targets, the whole 169 targets, it is something that can take us from one step to another as the whole world. And that inequalities will be really, really reduced. Can we have the next slide, please? Oh, sorry. Yes. And then this is my best part. I guess this is what I'm supposed to be talking about from the start, though I really wanted to just give a slight background so that we know what we're talking about, although the former speakers, the few that I have watched, have already done a good job with encouraging us to introduce the SDGs. So what is your role? What is my role? What is all our role? Currently, as I'm an SDG coordinator for Makerere University, this is an entirely voluntary role. For Makerere University is one of the best universities in Uganda and in Africa in general. It trains professionals every other year. There are over 20,000 students graduating into the professional world. So it is urgent to have every professional go out there trying to relate their responsibility as a professional in sustainable development. So first of all, as who know the gospel of sustainable development goals, it is our duty and our role to preach it to everyone around us, to the engineer around you, to the doctor around you, to the social worker around you, to the veterinary doctor around you, to everyone around you. And that is why I was passionate enough to start the SDG club at Makerere University, so that I can have tangible results. We go to different colleges and tell people about this. I source material from different areas and share reading material with the different students. I put out chats like you see the one behind me on notice boards on WhatsApp, so that different students can actually get to know about this. Awareness is really important because we're actually running out of time. 15 years always seems so much at the start, but when we are 5 years down the road and we have not exactly achieved some percentage of the 17 goals, it becomes an urgent matter. So let us all treat it like an urgent matter. Like I've said earlier, it's our responsibility to actually align ourselves with these goals, to remind ourselves. We can even have alarms. As you wake up in the morning, you're like, you know what, there are 17 of these today, which one am I working towards? Because we are running out of time, and it's not the government's responsibility, it's not the leader's responsibility, it is mine and it is yours. How do you live your SDGs in the daily life? One time I was watching someone who inspired me actually. She said that she puts a 2-minute song when she's going to start showering. She sings to the song. When the song is done, she should be done. Reason, she's conserving water. She's making sure there is little wastage, because of the 17 goals. When you're eating food, you know very well every day how much you eat. This has been said even by the previous speaker. I was actually really impressed that, you know what, all of us globally are thinking the same. When you're eating food, how much do you eat? If you eat just a quarter kilo of rice, why are you cooking at 4 kilograms? Like, save it because there's someone out there who is hungry. let us make sure the prices of food are down so that everyone can afford. Now, for example, in my country, a very big group of people live below the poverty line. And you can imagine the poverty line is as low as $2, but so many people live below that. How do they even get food? So anywhere you can, anywhere I can, anywhere we all can volunteer, reach out to our neighbors, reach out to anyone to achieve these 17 goals is very welcome. That should be an everyday responsibility. You wake up every day and you're like, of the 17, which one have I achieved? If you have not achieved any, then at least send some mobile money to a charity organization that's going to provide food, or that is going to provide some pads, some menstruation pads to probably girls in the villages, because for us, we have a problem with that. Some girls in our villages do not go to school because of menstruation periods, something that is normal, that is everyone, that happens to everyone, but because they have no way of handling it, they end up missing school. Do you know how many SDGs those are? There's good health is already bad, that's 3. Quality education is already messed up because they are home. They are not empowered, which is disappointing. Goal 5 not achieved. Goal 8, there is no economic growth. There is no sustainable employment, or what? There will be no sustainable cities if those people are not empowered. There will be no partnerships. You know that, like, if you see the magnitude of just breaching one goal, it's embarrassing. That's why you have to actually work hard and use your aim as a professional. Now, my focus is with professionals. Besides the fact that you did your very good degree and you're earning some good money, and what happens to the social community? Because actually, today you're well off, tomorrow your child might not be well off. So if we work all towards this, imagine if our kids grow up and they found education much cheaper than we found it, we would have so many professionals and knowledge lying around. That means automatically there's little criminality in our areas. So beyond government, beyond the civil society, beyond anyone else, it's our individual responsibility. I get inspired whenever I'm following people on Twitter and LinkedIn, and they're posting their trees, day 1 tree, day 2 tree, a year over tree. You may not exactly see the impact of what you're doing, but however small, plant it. Let us just wait for impact of years, because you see, this global warming of -2 degrees Celsius is an impact of years. So let us also do things that when years come up, when years go by, the impact will actually be good. You see, because you see the impact of climate change that we're having now is impact of activities of what people did in our previous years that has finally come up with the bad impact. So let us all try our best to do things right now, that after a particular number of years, the impact shall be estimated and the impact shall be good. So sustainable development is actually, like, it's so easy. It's so easy to do. It's beyond, when we don't wait for other people, when we don't wait for policymakers, when we don't wait for our presidents to do this, and then we do it ourselves, it will be so easy for us to move. You see, for example, like energy. Recently, I was having an argument about energy, sustainable energy, like energy that is not harming actually the environment. You know why it's so expensive? Because we have refused to use it, because something becomes cheaper when it is popular, and so the cost of production goes down. Yeah, but if we have refused to move to solar energy, if we have refused to move to sustainable energy, it of course has to be expensive, because we have refused, because of our lifestyles. So if our lifestyles reflect what we believe in, then we shall definitely achieve sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you, Doran. Thank you so much for that beautiful insights on going to sustainable development, or how renewable energy should be our main focus for the next century. So especially, it is when it comes to countries like India, we are making a slow progress in shifting towards renewable energy, but this is high time where we critically think about various renewable resources to make up for a progressive development. So any quick questions that if somebody has to ask, you can unmute yourself and ask. Quick questions, we'll go for 1 or 2 questions quickly.
Yes, please ask very fast because speakers are waiting. So any quick questions, please?
So I think in that sense, let me think there are no questions.
Yes, email ID, so you can write to her for more details.
So let me invite Ninu once again. Let me invite Ninu onto the virtual stage.
Thank you.
And we wish to honor Doran, traveling a long way, coming to India to deliver this talk. So we necessarily think it's a great to have you here. So let us show all love towards you with this virtual memento.
Thank you.
This is a small token of love.
Wow. Thank you so much.
This is a small token of love from Social Town because you traveled all across to India. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and you're very talented. It's our role, and it's the citizen roles. It's the responsibility of each and every one of us. We don't need to wait for anyone. Well said, and thank you so much, Doreen. There is a question from Rashmi Rio. What has been Doreen's approach in seeking support from corporations, institutions, and spreading awareness? Shall reach out via email as well. Yes. So even Bhavya wants to know the same. If you can answer it very quickly, that would be great.
Yes, thank you so much for that question. So let me read it again. What has been my approach in seeking out support from corporations, institutions, and spreading awareness? First of all, I started with the small that I could. For example, Makerere University is a school of students, and all students have smartphones somewhere. They are doing WhatsApps. So my very first step actually was to send out just WhatsApp messages. Hi, please share to your groups. Those simple small messages that people seem to actually ignore. For example, you can get messages and it shows you forwarded many times. You see, when you forward it many times, even if it's forwarded to 100 people, 50 people or 20 will pick interest. So first, to begin with, I used that as simple as possible. And then people came out. When people came out, I started using, again, our available resources. People spend a lot of time on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook doing nothing. I recorded a video about sustainable development and challenged anyone in any profession to record. I recorded as an engineer. I got over 30 videos of different professionals, doctors, mechanical engineers. How many engineers breaking out? When that was done, it attracted a lot of attention from the UN, actually, in our country, and from our Office of the Prime Minister. When they invited me, because of the impact of the videos, they thought I was this very big person holding some very big post, and everyone was eager. How can we help you? How can we join you? How can we, it's because people do not know that you can actually use the easiest of things around you without even spending money. From there, that's when they donated the charts, the reading material, the watch. And then with honesty, when you're giving accountability, of course, if they give you the charts, you make sure they are put out to every place. And of course, there's always feedback. When people receive feedback, more and more people come to you because they know that you're capable of working.
Thank you so much, Doran, for that elaborate answer. From bottom of our heart, let us all at Social Town thank you for
Rahul,
being with us today.
Second.
Yeah.
May I add on to that 1 second?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
No
Doreen,
problem.
you're already a big person when you initiated that thought process. So definitely, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much and you are charged 5,000 rupees fine for interrupting me. Thank you so much, Doran, and Ninu, it's up to you. to introduce the next speaker. You are on mute, Nino. You need to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Great.
So please welcome our next speaker, More Hazim. Ma'am, I think you're here.
Yes, she's here. She's here.
Give a very quick introduction about ma'am. More is a program manager at Google. She leads a global mentoring program for over 150 plus sustainable development startups tackling the sustainable development goals. In addition, More is a team development consultant working with teams across Google to identify opportunities to increase effectiveness and facilitate team building activities. Hugely passionate about the intersection of innovation and social impact, More is currently pursuing her master's degree in social innovation at the University of Cambridge. Prior to Google, More worked in Tel Aviv as a startup consultant in the Techstars Accelerator and a marketing manager for VMware, while volunteering with Engineers Without Borders and the Society of International Development. It's a privilege to have you here, ma'am, and this is a much awaited session because I'm also, we are also a startup, and there are other, social startups here. So I think a lot of learning experience. So we are waiting.
And with this all now, let's put our hands together to bring More to our virtual stage.
Woo, thank you. Hi, everyone. And I think, Nino, thank you so much for the kind introduction, and thank you for having me. I think you're going to present for me, right? So I'm going to wait for you.
Can I share my screen?
Yeah. Perfect. We just need to make it a bit bigger.
Yes. So I hope everyone can see this now.
No, Nino, you need to go for full screen or else.
Yes, it's in full screen. I can, see that.
Yeah, you need to increase the size. It's 100%. You need to increase the size from 100 to 150 or 200 so that it is visible. It's visible to you, but it's not visible for us. That's a problem.
Oh, so what to do now? Can you share your screen? I've shared these.
Yes. I'll share my screen. But I think even if I share my screen, the same thing might happen.
Yes.
So I'm stopping your screen sharing.
Okay.
And then I'll go with mine.
If it happens, okay, that's much better.
Okay.
I think it was better before on 100 because we could see the full slide.
Yeah.
So this is good, 100, good enough. And I think we can get started. So great. Thank you so much for sharing for me. As a Google employee, I always struggle using Zoom because we use Google Meet. So thank you, Ninu, for saving me on that. So I'm really, really happy to be here. I'll talk obviously about my role in Google and how we help SDG startups. But before that, I'll just start with a quick introduction about myself and my SDG journey, if you will, and how it led me to the role I'm currently doing at Google. And I hope I can leave 5 minutes or so for questions if anybody wants to share something or ask anything. So I'm originally from Israel, but based in Ireland, but somehow have been living in Germany during this work from home time. But I'm actually dreaming every day on being in sunny California, like in the picture on the slide, in the days before all I did was sit in my kitchen. So really hoping that this will come back soon. And I worked for Google for the past 4.5 years, almost 5 now. My biggest passions in life have been for a very long time already startups or innovation and social impact. And I've only recently learned and managed to kind of marry these two passions. So that's something I'll be talking a little bit about today. And I'm just like a lot of you working my way towards a career that focuses on the SDGs. It hasn't been an easy journey at all. But I'm a little bit can say that I'm there right now, and I really hope that for the rest of my life I get to pursue these passions that all of us here share. So next slide, please. Yeah, before. So a little bit about my SDG journey. I think like many people in this virtual room, probably this has been something that I kind of grew up being very passionate about before the SDGs had a name or a framework, just this kind of fire to fix inequalities and all those kind of the lack of access to resources that so many people in the world had. And I obviously didn't know how to do that. I barely know now, like this is a big task, but I just started learning by doing. So I just signed up for any type of volunteer work that seemed to be in the right direction for me. And that has led me to many interesting places. So whether it was work around conflict and peace, negotiation in Israeli and the kind of Middle East context that I grew up in, whether it was a healthcare organization like Save a Child's Heart that brings access to heart surgery to children from developing countries who don't normally have access to that, or whether it's something like Engineers Without Borders, where I spent a year in collaboration with a community in Tanzania, working on a water purifying system and a solar energy system, and really focusing on the more kind of traditional development work that we're familiar to. I spent in the process a lot of time in Uganda, in Malawi, and in Tanzania. Made a lot of mistakes, been through a lot of challenges, and I think that was even more so important than the successes or the learning or the adventures that were part of this journey. And that's something I'm going to touch upon a bit later. And the next slide, please. To kind of complement my practical experience and adventures with SDGs, I also try to really educate myself in the more traditional sense in academia. So my bachelor's, I always managed to kind of force the SDG angle on whatever I studied, whether it was political science, so always choosing the topics that were about development and humanitarian aid and topics like that. And whether it is my master's that I'm currently studying for in Cambridge University, which focuses on social innovation and how we can really leverage innovation, entrepreneurship, intrapreneurship, extrapreneurship towards social impact, and do it responsibly and do it sustainably, and what that even means. So that was the learning by learning part. And after that, I think the most important learning aspect to mention is the next slide, which is unlearning. And I think especially in the SDG space, maybe in the wider social impact space, but especially in the SDG space, where we have these principles of leaving no one behind and working with very vulnerable communities and maybe not having sufficient local context. I think the most important thing for me and has been and still is unlearning a lot of the assumptions that I've had, a lot of the things that I just thought I have to do or I couldn't do in order to drive SDG impact. And I'm going to touch upon some of these kind of things that I had to unlearn throughout the years, and I'm still unlearning later on. But the one thing I think that was really meaningful for me is this assumption that in order to drive SDG impact or any type of social impact, you have to be somebody like Doreen, who was very inspiring before us, and really dedicate your life to live it, working for something like SDSN or the UN, or working on nonprofit, or living in different countries and not necessarily in a place like Ireland, where I live right now. And all these assumptions that there is only one way to do SDG work, and that way is completely separate than something like Google or startups or Silicon Valley and technology, that all of these things are separate. And I think that caused a lot of tension in my life, because I was on one hand very passionate about international development, about social impact, about doing the right thing and making sure that that is the purpose of my life. And on the other hand, I was always very drawn to kind of this entrepreneurship world, to technology, cutting edge technology that's pushing humanity forward, artificial intelligence and machine learning, and all these very, very exciting changes embodied in companies like Google. And that caused a lot of tension, because I just didn't know how I could marry these two kind of sides of me. And if we go to the next slide, this is my happy slide, because this is the wedding. This is me finally being able to marry these two worlds that have always been a constant throughout my life. So a little bit about how that happened and still happening. The most important thing in this program or personal story is that I met my co-founder within Google who share the vision for leveraging Google employees and resources towards startup engagement and scale, and to empower these startups to build sustainable social impact companies. So not just the next unicorn, not just, you know, the money-making machine, or not just the newest technology, but really social impact companies. And meeting that person that shared my vision was the most important thing in the process, because I think it can be scary to try to execute a change in a huge organization all by yourself. It can be scary to believe that you can do that or that it will be successful. And finding that other person that shared the vision was immensely helpful in that. So I will be talking today, but huge credit to Irwin Abutbol, who was my kind of partner in crime in this, and many other people, of course. So about 2 years ago, we started working. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. About 2 years ago, we started thinking, okay, Google does a lot of great social work, especially for nonprofits. So if you will, a more traditional thinking of what social impact is, right? Let's help nonprofits, let's do charity, donate money, volunteer hours, stuff like that. And then a lot of work with Google for Startups, helping, you know, grow the next unicorn, identify the biggest kind of next disruptor of fintech or whatever it is. But where do these worlds meet? And the answer is they didn't really, not really. So the idea was let's create an accelerator or a program that not only helps a selected amount of startups who focus on social impact to drive their businesses forward, but also let's send out this message that these are not two separate things, and that young people, like before in one of the talks before, we talked about how millennials and Gen Zs are super passionate about making an impact, but they're also passionate about, you know, being business owners and entrepreneurs and Forbes 30 under 30 and all these stuff, right? So let's send out a message that you don't have to make a choice and only have one of these things. You can devote your life to being an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, to create your own thing, to be a successful business person, but also drive positive change, to merge these social and commercial goals. That was a really important message for us. And so we launched the first Google for Startups Accelerator, some articles you see on the screen. And that was a 6-month program focusing on startups specifically from the EMEA region, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And they did all kinds of SDG impact. We chose the SDG as a framework because it really helped us make sure not only that we're really doing social impact, which is a bit of an ambiguous term, but also that we're not leaving anyone behind, that we're doing inclusive impact and something that is available for everyone. So this could range from education to healthcare to climate and any other area. And of course, for the most part, each of these startups would tackle 4 or 5 different SDGs because everything is interconnected. But now this was successful, this was fun, this was great, we were all happy with it. But at the end of the day, we helped 11 startups. And you don't need me to tell you that 11 startups are not going to solve the SDGs, right? Not this type of massive scale problems. So the next slide was basically the result of that understanding. And the big question there was, how do we scale? How do we help a lot of startups, especially when you take into consideration that startups first and foremost fail, right? That's kind of what they do. They fail and they learn and they become better and they fail again and eventually they succeed. That's just part of the startup life cycle, and that's fine because entrepreneurship development is not only about being a successful startup, it's about helping people think in that entrepreneurial way and believe that they can drive change. And I think to me, that's especially important in the SDG space because people come from vulnerable communities. They see a lot of issues around them growing up, and inspiring people to really just take things into their own hands and try to solve problems for their local communities is very, very important for us. So how do we scale? The question was, we design a separate program that is a mentoring program, because we learned that one of the things that SDG startups really lack is access to expertise. So there's so many programs and so many VCs and so many just channels available there for, let's call them revenue startups or traditional startups that are maximizing for growth, that want to be the next unicorn. But there's not as much support available for social startups. And apart from the actual resource, we see that it's just very difficult for a lot of people in the startup ecosystem to grasp this idea that you're not only maximizing for revenue or users, you're maximizing for impact. So everything has to be done right. It can't just be about size. It can't just be about scaling fast. It has to be done in a way that leaves no one behind. And that is a very difficult thing to unlearn if all you've learned as an MBA student or a Google employee is that you need to scale, right? That's very difficult. So talking about unlearning, this is one of the things we're trying to do with our mentor community, help them unlearn how to think about impact first, before growth, before revenue. So as the pilot stage launched last year, we engaged 62 startups from 33 countries and 150, then there's around 200 mentors. And then this year, we continue to scale the program officially. It's called the Startup Advisor SDG program. And we already have more than 150 startups in the program and more than 300 mentors. And these startups come from everywhere. They cover all SDGs, especially 1, 3, and 8 are very common. And I put just like 2 quick examples on the screen of how these startups look like. So Wondertree, a wonderful startup from Pakistan, what they do is they develop AR, so augmented reality games, specifically for children with special needs. So a really innovative way, technological way to drive change, to help educate, to help kind of include children with special needs. And of course, they do it in a sustainable, affordable way so that it's not only accessible to a small portion of the community. Another example, Capture from Singapore, wonderful startup, does a kind of carbon tracking app that allows you to take action based on your carbon footprint. So very simple, very important use of technology that we see more and more happening, and just to show you the range of things. We have many more fabulous examples from everywhere. We currently have 4 startups from India, for example, doing healthcare, food waste. So we really accept everyone, big or small, and no matter what stage they are, as long as they leverage technology towards SDGs. And the reason we highlight technology is just because it's still a program by Google, and we feel like this is where Google is best positioned to support these startups. So it's also important for us to really bring value and not just say that, oh, we're helping these startups, it's really nice, but really think about who are the startups that we are able to help and support using our mentor community. And I see a nice comment in the chat about Capture. I'm really happy from that because Capture is not only an amazing product, but it's an amazing team as well. So definitely support them. Next slide, please. So this is a big task. We actually have a mission of reaching 500 startups this year alone. And this is like no other program that we have. Usually our programs, because we're optimizing for scale, then we focus on these really high potential startups and we just choose a handful of them. So a program for 500 startups is a huge task. We've never done it and we don't know how it's going to look like, but we're hopeful that it will work out. And the important thing here is that we're not doing it alone. So we do it with a little help from our friends. So we have a few UN agencies that have been working very closely with us, UNDP, World Food Bank, etc., and a few VCs or impact accelerators like Math Challenge that probably a lot of you know. And we also have our Pairs Foundation. We also have SDG consultants, Mindset PCS. And I think the important thing about this is that they're not just there to share, you know, a pipeline of startups or something like that. They're there to make sure that we're doing things properly. And that is so important, I think, because none of us can pretend, in me or my team, that we are the SDG experts and that we have all the tools and all the knowledge. Organizations like UNDP, for example, have been focusing on this for years and years and years, right? So it's so important to work as an ecosystem instead of alone. And I think this point really relates to my personal journey as well, and not only the Google program. Because when I think about me as a young girl, very, very passionate and just driven to, make a change and trying to help people, I came from this very naive solo perspective of, I'm going to fly to Africa with a nonprofit, I'm going to volunteer, and I'm going to help people, which of course sounds ridiculous to me today because I had zero social context, zero education around SDGs and the risks of SDGs. And that is something I'm still learning every day about. So just like I learned that I shouldn't operate alone as an individual and I should always use, expert organizations, experts from academia, people with experience, and of course, most importantly, local communities to drive any type of SDG impact. This same learning very much applies to our program in Google, because it would have been easy to use Google's brand and power to just say, this is ours, and we do it alone, and we don't need anybody to help us. But that would have just been wrong in the SDG context. And it is so important that we work together with these partners who have so much more experience and knowledge and connections. So this is definitely a huge learning for me. Never go at it alone and always work as an ecosystem. And next slide, please. So a few nice quotes from the startups. And I think this is just to summarize. The startups really appreciate it, and they really just appreciate the access. And this is really interesting because, they're working to make access better for users, but they themselves lack access a lot of the time. And, some of these startups, they're more traditional, maybe they're big, they do AI solutions, they have access to developing markets with lots of VC money, etc. But some of them, I can give you an example. We have a startup called TPS, Technological Plumbing Solutions, a couple of guys from a village in Kenya. They don't have access to that type of Silicon Valley fortune or support that a lot of startups do. And they really appreciate just getting that access. And this is the most important thing for us, to be able to include them in this conversation about startup growth and startup success. And the next slide also shows that the mentors value it. And this is very meaningful for me to see, because what we're trying to do here is not only to help the startups, but to also educate mentors, people who are so focused on business results, that there's a whole world out there that they can be a part of and help with their expertise, and that you don't have to be an SDSN employee in order to support the SDGs. You don't have to be somebody with 15 years experience in the nonprofit sector. You can just do your share in order to invest it in the right causes and help somebody else who does SDG impact, like our startups. So our mentors really value this opportunity. And then lastly, I'll just wrap this up. The next slide. So how can we as individuals and organizations help advance the SDG? Generally speaking, of course, I can't add really anything to everything that you all know already from your experience or the beautiful advice that was given here earlier. I will just kind of add from my experience with this program and just other organizations and projects I took part of, that it's all about awareness, education, and action, depending on kind of the stage you're at or the stage your environment is at, and taking baby steps in each one of them to promote this. So my biggest kind of unlearning, I will mention again, was that, or one of my biggest, was to unlearn this idea that if I don't give 100% of my time, expertise, and energy to SDGs, that I'm not qualified to do social impact, that it's not good enough and I can't be a part of that. And instead, I really, what Doreen said about doing little things like how long you wash your hands, that really resonated with me, because awareness can be something like just, telling somebody an interesting story about how a startup is working towards social impact in a developing community. It can be something like recommending Capture app to people when you talk to them, right, to support. It can be voting with your money. So when you choose a product, is it sustainably sourced? Is the supply chain fair? So just making these little choices. With education is choosing to also listen to things from maybe speakers you don't normally listen to from different angles. And with action, again, it's just about thinking, what are the little things I can do? So I'll give you a very corporate example. In corporates, we love swag, right? We just love to send t-shirts and gifts that absolutely nobody needs to each other, to customers, to partners. How can we take something so small like swag and change it to be sustainably sourced? If we have to send it, is there a social business we can support by buying it from them instead of the traditional t-shirt that ends up in a pile of garbage somewhere? How can we make these little choices that just make not just the world better, but also support people who are actively trying to make it better, and sending across that message that we believe in you, the work you do is important, you need to be that. And just that, to summarize, the future of work should be social impact. It should be embedded in social impact. And these should not be two separate things that we optimize in two different directions. So whatever we do, just having that thought of how do I send a message out to anyone around me that this is a priority and that we should think about the impact we have on communities, on the environment, etc. And that's it on my end. I'm sorry if I spoke too long, I didn't notice. And if there's time, I'm more than happy to take any questions. So thank you so much.
You're on time, More, and thank you so much for that wonderful session. So we'll take some quick questions. We'll start with Ninu. Ninu, you have some questions to ask.
Yep. I was listening to you, and I'm also a very passionate volunteer, and no one in my circle was not so familiar with social development sector. So I'm basically an engineer, and then marketing, and then embedded system designing. But then when I started volunteering, I realized that I wanted to do something, some kind of impact, but I don't know where to go and how to. That's why I conceptualized a platform like the Social Town, where I can bring in, everyone in the social sector together so that can learn, assist, support, and exchange resources. You can see the chat box, how many collaborations happen today itself. Within the 3-hour sessions, we are exchanging a lot of knowledge. We are learning about each other. And, everyone, I can see that at least 10, 20 people connected from here. So within, a 3-hour time, this is what we really wanted to achieve, and happy.
Thank you, Ninu. Thank you so much for that wonderful thing. And Bhavya, you have raised your hand. I'm taking you to the stage.
Yes, very good questions, Bhavya. We can,
Hi, More. Thank you so much for this wonderful insights. Unfortunately, mine is a social enterprise, but not in the tech space, and I regret that. But the thing you had shared, regarding the gifting process, what people tend to gift to the employees, and that's where my social enterprise is coming in. We are trying to disrupt that gifting industry. Especially the corporate gifting industry, getting the people from rural artisans tell their stories through the products, and that is where we are trying to work on. The concept is Grameen to gifting, I mean the rural areas to the gifting processes. So that thing that stuck me actually, and that's how I wanted to get connected to you. Thank you.
Yeah, and please, thank you so much. And please do connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to chat. And I think the important thing here is maybe a certain profile of a startup or an enterprise does not fit Google specifically and what we do, but the larger kind of target here is to start this wider conversation amongst all corporates, that corporates have to be a part of this. So we don't want to put the SDGs on the shoulders of entrepreneurs, right? That's ridiculous. That's not fair at all. Corporates have so much resource, so much access, so much expertise. They have to be part of this conversation. And so I hope corporates that are, for example, closer to the retail space, the gifting space, then they could be the right fit for you. And I know Microsoft, for example, is already doing also some SDG work in that space. So we hope to see more and more of that.
Yeah, no, there is one more.
There is one question in the chat box that how can any social enterprise apply for the accelerator program this year? I think this is a very important information.
Sharda, it's a question from Sharda.
Yes.
Yeah, very, very simple. So just follow Google for Startups on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, any type of social media. Every time we have a new accelerator or a new program, we announce it there with all the conditions and the application process. For example, we just opened a climate challenge for startups who focus specifically on climate from North America. So sometimes we target specific locations, and sometimes it's global, but just follow Google for Startups and you will always get all these updates. And by the way, there are a lot of free events. So even if it's not an accelerator program, there are many, many, many free events for startups in general, like storytelling workshops or things like that. So I really recommend following and just signing up to whatever is useful for you.
Don't worry, Ninu, I will share the things because we already get message through Techstars. I'm a Techstars Startup Weekend organizer, so we do get a lot of messages. What are things Google is organizing? So I will share all those things with you so that you can share with your community and growing together. So any more questions? A couple of quick questions, and one question to more is that do we really need a strong technology for a sustainable growth in terms of social startups?
So in general, of course, the answer is no. And I'm only referring to the startups that we accept for our program. And that is just because Google is best positioned to provide that type of expertise. We have obviously a lot of engineers, a lot of high-end technology. And that's why we choose to focus on tech startups. But of course, the wider answer to that is not at all. And one of the surprising or interesting learnings for me of working with startups is that actually often in the SDG space, you don't need state-of-the-art technology. You need low connectivity technology, sustainable technology, something that's frugal technology, if you heard that term. And actually, you don't need advanced machine learning models at all. So if you are a tech startup or you work with someone who is, I would encourage you to always think, what is the right technological solution for my community that I'm supporting versus what looks best to investors or what would Google be interested in? That's not the way to think of SDGs. And we accept any type of technology. So even if it's a simple app or an e-commerce website, it doesn't have to be anything advanced at all.
Thank you so much more. And any quick questions? So we'll take one last question. And if not, let me, Ninu is already on stage. So let me invite more to receive this virtual memento presented to you by Ninu. Just a minute, just a second, sorry. I forgot to share the screen. Here we go. Just consider you are invited to the stage and we are presenting you. Thank you so much for joining us, more traveling all there from Ireland and joining us here in India. It's a great thing to have you here. Big kudos to you. Happy day to all out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
our next speaker, Mama. I can see.
Yes, Tama is here. Don't worry. You just go ahead. I'm Takathar.
Okay, yeah. So please join me to welcome our next speaker, Tama Carroll. Tama Carroll is a senior environmental consultant holding an MS degree in environment management, practitioner membership of IEMA, as well as being an IEMA IRCA accredited environmental auditor. She's the founder and director of Imelvo Limited, which provides expert environmental consultancy from training to UK businesses to help meet the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Imelvo's environmental consultancy services have been carefully aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the International Environmental Management Systems. Tama is also a member of the IEMA Northeast Steering Group and is actively involved as a STEM ambassador.
Thank you, Tama. You joined right us from 5:30, and you are with us. Thank you so much. And with a whole lot of applause, let us welcome you to the virtual stage. Come on. I need.
All yours, ma'am. And thank you for waiting for so long. And yeah, we're excited.
Oh, it's okay. It's been like honestly an incredibly interesting afternoon. I'm so glad to be involved in this. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak and to share my insights. So just before I get started, you can see me okay, you can hear me okay, you can see the screen?
Yes, ma'am, we can see you.
Okay.
Everything goes okay.
When all the technology works, you gotta love it. Brilliant. So thank you so much for the very kind introduction. My name is Tama. I'm an environmental consultant and business owner based in Newcastle upon Tyne in England, in the United Kingdom. So I'm coming to you from the UK this afternoon.
Yes, we have friends from Nigeria here. We have many community members.
It's been fantastic. This is really a multinational event, and I find that so interesting. Despite the fact that I live in the UK, I'm actually originally from South Africa. So my kind of upbringing and understanding of nature and the interaction of humans with nature is quite different. And I can definitely see that in the way that, I've chosen my career and kind of how I've ended up. 5 years ago, I set up my own business, an environmental consultancy and training business called Envelo Limited. So Envelo is just a bit of a tribute to my African heritage. It is, in fact, the Zulu word for environment. And I set up my own business because I really wanted to help other businesses understand sustainability, understand the Sustainable Development Goals and what they could do about it. And the truth is, I just couldn't find a job that was doing that. So it was never originally part of the plan to set up my own business. But there was a job I wanted to do, so I decided I was going to create it for myself. And I'm still here 5 years later. I'm a one-woman business. And thankfully have continued to survive through the last year in spite of all of the challenges that we've all had to experience. So I provide a number of services as an environmental consultant. Specifically, I work with businesses. So I work in the private sector. I'm a private organization myself. I target private businesses because, as I've heard through the talk coming through this afternoon, there is an inherent theme that, there is a huge responsibility on businesses to be more sustainable. And the truth is that businesses have the capacity, the capability to move a lot faster than governments can. So I believe in kind of harnessing the power of private organizations to accelerate this route to sustainability. But in order to move in the business sphere, in the corporate sphere, I use corporate strategies to help businesses have access to, understand, and interpret the Sustainable Development Goals so they can really embed them in their business strategy. So it becomes exactly, again, what we've been talking about throughout today, how it shouldn't be a separate entity, how sustainability should sit at the very heart of how businesses operate. What I find in my time is that businesses generally don't know what they don't know. So although there's the willing, although there's the intent, what they really struggle with is how do our activities as an organization actually impact on sustainability? More interestingly, what is the impact of sustainability on our business? Are we in fact an inherently sustainable business? So there's a huge element of risk management involved as well. So I use international standards, business management systems and standards to help businesses create frameworks to embed sustainability or environmental targets within their strategy. I specialize in legislation. So as a starting point, businesses accessing and understanding environmental laws that are specifically designed to prevent pollution, but then how do we make them better? The bare minimum is let's not break the law. Cool, have we got that in hand? Not always. But once we do get that in hand, what can we do better? And all of this is underpinned by quite rigid auditing, so continuously monitoring, continuously checking on progress towards achieving environmental objectives, and then a huge element of education, training, and awareness. So really trying to fill those knowledge gaps between how business has historically been done and what is necessary to change in the mindset of business in order to embed sustainability. My job is really one of the most interesting ones. So this is, you know, I absolutely love the diversity of my role. The truth is that I choose to work in dirty industry. So I very specifically choose to target manufacturing, construction, waste, chemical, you know, the industries where there are the biggest challenges, but in every challenge there is in fact an opportunity. So the truth is, as a business owner, my life can sometimes be quite glamorous, but the reality of being an environmental consultant is that I'm usually knee deep in oil or sludge or waste, you know, with a hard hat, sticking my nose in bins or oil barrels or something like that. But this is the practical support that businesses need to get hold of so that they can begin to do better. Let's get the house in order so that we can actually find the opportunity for improvement. Something that I'm extremely passionate about as well, and work, you know, very actively in alongside running my business, is I am a STEM ambassador. So I am a huge believer in education. I am an advocate for STEM careers because I believe wholeheartedly that this is what is necessary to solve, you know, future challenges. And I believe I have quite a unique position as a single, you know, female entrepreneur setting up my businesses, trying to tackle these issues, that I can actually use this platform to be an advocate and ambassador to hopefully inspire the next generation of problem solvers and hopefully bring more diversity into the conversation around sustainability. And I think being visible is actually just half of the challenge, you know, just letting other people see what you can do if you're kind of committed enough to do it. And again, I'm so honored to be part of this panel and hear the stories and all the projects that everybody's working on. But this is also why I love sustainability and working in the sector. It is the most inspiring and ambitious people trying to solve some of the biggest challenges. So quite a big element of the job that I do, how I help businesses, is focusing on those corporate elements of sustainability. So we change the language a little bit. We don't always necessarily talk about the environment. We don't necessarily always talk about sustainability. What I do spend an awful lot of time talking about is risk and opportunity. Okay, so what are the problems, and where there's a problem, what are the solutions that will solve global issues, but also make this business itself more sustainable so that it can continue to thrive in an ever-changing climate. So when we talk about environmental risk and opportunity, although this is a business conversation, what it does, it begins to open up the kind of windows to begin to talk about those core elements, those key elements of sustainability. So we can talk about social, societal, community factors. We can talk about economic factors, but internal and external economic factors. We talk about reputation and risk and how your consumers respond to you, what they want from you, what they expect from you. How do you market and sell to them to continue to meet their needs? And then, of course, we talk about what is the law and where is the law going? You know, what is going to change as we consider this global solution for sustainability? So just using those as a starting point, you know, what are the business risks? What are the business opportunities? Leads us down these pathways to explore some of the most challenging issues. And we understand, of course, I don't need to educate this audience on what the actual impact of, you know, environmental limits means for businesses, for society. So we know the population is growing. We understand the impacts of pollution. We understand the impacts of biodiversity loss, what climate change looks like, the role that human society and businesses play in contributing to this global challenge, and also the rate at which we are consuming materials. But with all of these challenges, as a sustainability professional, as an environmentalist, I believe wholeheartedly that there are solutions, there are opportunities to transform the world to sustainability as individuals, as organizations, and as countries in the end. So we talk about environmental sustainability creating organizational value. So again, it's changing how they perceive it. It's giving it a of value, not this nice thing to have, you know, not planting a few trees that they can put in the local newspaper, but what does it mean to the bottom line of how they operate as a business? So suddenly giving nature a number, a value, a monetary value that they can begin to monitor in the way that they determine, direct and steer their businesses. So for all of these, you know, environmental risks that we are facing, there are, of course, small and big opportunities. You know, again, we've touched on these little things that everybody can do within an organization of 1,000 people. If that one little thing was rolled out, it would have a huge impact. But again, businesses have the resources to go bigger, to do better, to be more ambitious, to throw more innovation and technology at solving some of these problems. So this is where I like to position myself, you know, right in it, and essentially just try and change the way that organizations think. But again, it's bringing it back to what really matters to them. So for them, from a business perspective, the bottom line is resiliency, organizational sustainability. We cannot afford to not do what we do. But if the limitations in our surrounding environment, the impacts of climate change are already limiting us in doing what we're supposed to do. So again, we can lead it into these big conversations around sustainability when we talk about risk and resiliency and opportunities. And every organization, from, you know, really small businesses, community groups, societies, you know, big blue chip organizations, if they just ask this question, how do we make sure we stay here? How do we keep doing what we're supposed to do, what we want to do? Let's protect ourselves. That's what sustainability is. Let's protect ourselves so that we can continue to thrive and survive. So of course, we understand that sustainable development is about meeting the needs of us here and now, but also making sure that future generations can continue to meet their own needs. And we tend to talk about sustainability, sustainable development as this triple bottom line, this three-legged stool, where we have to consider people, planet, and profit. So again, in those conversations around risk and opportunity, naturally it happens that whatever issue comes up, it will fit into one of these three pillars. Is it a people problem? Is it a profit problem? Is it a planet problem? And much more interestingly, where are the points where all of these problems overlap? Because where they overlap, that's where the best opportunity is. That's where the best solution is. And of course, this then leads us on to the Sustainable Development Goals, because if we are aiming for sustainable development, we understand we have to get back to within that triple bottom line of sustainability. Well, the Sustainable Development Goals give us a roadmap. They're saying within those three sections of people, planet, profit, these are the most pressing issues. If you focus on these specific areas, it will result in the biggest level of positive change. Again, I think what is really difficult is that whatever solution we have will never have perfect solutions. It is always that balance between people, planet, profit, but it's being ambitious enough and forward thinking enough to think, well, we can at least make a dent, you know, we can at least contribute something towards trying to achieve this. And Ban Ki-moon, again, has been quoted several times today. He does say all of the right things, but Ban Ki-moon's perspective on this is that business is a vital partner in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, because companies can contribute through their core activities and the nature that they operate. And the request on businesses is asking them to assess their impact, understand their impact, set ambitious goals to reduce their impact, and most importantly, communicate transparently about the results. So that is the good, the bad, and the ugly. We need to know everything so that we can learn from it. And again, I think we need to understand, and with the businesses I work with, I always say there's not an expectation that you're perfect. There's an expectation that you're trying. You know, that's what we need to see. Where you don't succeed at what you set out to do, at least recognize that. You know, don't sweep it under the carpet, because for whatever reason you didn't get there, there are lessons to be learned. But again, don't let not achieving a target be a reason to curb your ambition. Let's keep going big. Let's keep going large. And where the SDGs really do provide the opportunity, again, as you've said, is that there are 17 high-level goals, which are great, a great tool for engagement. You know, the graphics are there, the images are there, they look great, all the resources are there. But much more importantly, there are 169 targets associated with those goals, which means under every single one, there are numerous opportunities for businesses to support the SDGs. But the challenge is bridging the gap. So how do we make the SDG targets strategic KPIs for the business, key performance indicators for the business? And that is the gap that I try to bridge with businesses through, you know, formal, through legislation, through management systems, through education. How do we pick at least a few of these and really embed them so that the decisions you make as a business directly achieve the sub-targets within the SDGs? And again, we can hit it at multiple levels within an organization. Is it a strategic solution? Is it an operational solution? Do we need more staff engagement? Do we need more partnerships? You know, where the opportunities are endless. We just have to understand what problem it is exactly we're trying to solve. And that is the thing with the SDGs. We can't do all of them all at once. Just pick something very specific and run with it. When you've made progress, then you can expand. And that is the way to maintain engagement, actually, because otherwise it's too much, it's too overwhelming, it's too scary. So again, looking at it, you know, from a corporate perspective, the question I love to ask my clients is, what do you want your business to look like in 10 years? Do you still want to be here? Do you still, you know, what do you think your clients will think about the type of organization you are? And again, when we bring it to that commercial level, how do we meet the needs and expectations of our customers? It makes it much more palatable, I suppose, to buy in to sustainability, to take those strategic risks. Again, I have quite a hard line here, but I absolutely love this quote. You know, the businesses that thrive in the future will be those that figure out how to harness emerging innovations to address real human needs, placing sustainability at the heart of business strategy. Controversial, but I believe that there are entire industries that need to cease to exist. We just need to stop doing those things, and we need to create new industries. And again, the opportunities are around climate change, around technology, around structural economic change, which is that societal benefit that again has been a consistent theme throughout all of these presentations. And again, for the naysayers who say, well, we can't just disrupt whole industries, we can't just stop what we're doing and do things differently, because where will these people work? There'll be no jobs. Well, it's not even true. If we transition to more sustainable technologies, more sustainable businesses, we will create more sustainable jobs. There are 18 million jobs that could be achieved from achieving Paris's 2-degree centigrade global goal. 6 million more jobs could be created from embracing a circular economy. And as we stand, 1.2 billion jobs depend on stable environment, things like agriculture and fishery and pharmaceuticals that, again, we depend on. So there, you know, I think this has been consistent with all of the speakers. It baffles, you know, it blows your mind a little bit that there are no arguments not to do this if you look at the science, if you look at the numbers. One of the other things that I find absolutely fascinating, and again, it's why I'm so passionate about what I do, why I work so hard as a STEM ambassador, why I really believe that my position as an advocate for entrepreneurship, for women in business, for women in STEM is so fundamentally important, is that because apparently 65% of today's 12-year-olds will have jobs that don't yet exist. So again, we're trying to educate the next generation to solve our problems, but we can't tell them what they can grow up to be. Even myself, you know, when I was at school, no one told me I could grow up to be an environmental consultant. I found an opportunity, I created my own job. To be honest, environmental consultant's a bit of a made-up title, a bit like, you know, digital marketing consultant. That wasn't even a thing that existed 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but here we are. So again, it's not telling them what they're going to be, it's telling them what the problems are, where they can forge their own paths. And the benefit for business is that it helps them ensure their own sustainability by identifying future business opportunities, by enhancing the value of corporate sustainability, so actually making it mean something rather than planting 10 trees and, you know, hugely polluting the river behind your factory. It works to strengthen stakeholder relationships and keep with policy developments. It will ultimately stabilize societies and markets. And the beauty of the SDGs, it is that common language and shared purpose. There is not a single person on this planet who could look at the SDGs and not agree with the principles of what they're trying to achieve. In some way, they matter to us all. We just have to find the you know, how do we get people to understand how exactly the SDGs relate to them? So just to wrap up, I felt it would be remiss you know, to not mention the COVID-19 crisis. It has been a catastrophic year on so many levels. And it's been scary. It's been scary for a lot of people. We understand the immediate impact of it. We know it's going to have a financial impact, but we cannot forget that there is still a bigger challenge coming in terms of climate change. However, if we could take this year and kind of flip it around and try to find a bit of positivity out of what we've learned, there's a few things I think we can take away from it. The first is that we probably have this universal understanding. For the first time ever, I do think COVID taught us that global challenges have no national borders. You know, this argument against climate change that, well, it's not happening here, therefore it doesn't affect me. COVID just blew that out the water. Now we can see that these are global challenges. And global challenges require systemic changes. So it has really highlighted again the importance of these SDG subjects. Again, an important thing and something I advocate for hugely is that whatever solutions we come up with, though, they need to be based on science. We need to solve problems, not cover them up and cause secondary problems later. But knowledge and education is the key to finding solutions. Again, a theme throughout this session is that collective individual action makes a huge difference to the outcome. Prevention is better than cure, and it is no longer business as usual. It hasn't been business as usual for a whole year. So it is time to do things differently. And we actually have a unique opportunity here to start again, because we have to recover from this. We have to rebuild from the last year. So we could do it, you know, with the Sustainable Development Goals in mind. So that brings me to the end of my session. Thanks so much for your time and attention. And if anybody has any questions or you'd like to get in touch at the end of this, I would be delighted to hear from you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tama, for being with us and giving us a whole lot of insights. So any quick questions? If you have, please go for any quick questions, one or two questions. So one question, so how, one interesting question that turned up is, how progressively do you think that Sustainable Development Goals is going to impact the entire culture or diversity across the world?
I think it has a lot of opportunities. So the problem is that because of, you know, this audience and the fact that we are all kind of keyed into the Sustainable Development Goals, we know what we're talking about. You know, if you walk down the street and say to, you know, Joe Bloggs who's buying a coffee, what can you tell me about the Sustainable Development Goals? He probably doesn't know what they are, you know, what that means. But if you said, what do you feel about poverty, levels of poverty in this city? You know, what does that mean to you? So I think, yes, there is this opportunity for the cultural change, but although the conversation is around the Sustainable Development Goals, sometimes the language can be excluding. So it's again just about breaking down those barriers and figuring out within specific cultures, within specific societies, what elements of the SDGs do people actually care about? How can you get them to buy in and engage to change their own culture? Because again, even broadline ones like, you know, good health and well-being, I mean, that means so many different things depending on where you are in the world. You know, what is good health and well-being? So culturally, there isn't a one-size-fits-all. There shouldn't be a one-size-fits-all. But within the subject of good health and well-being, there are definitely opportunities to bring around large-scale change.
Thank you so much, Shama. That was one big answer which we thought. We thank you for your time in answering our questions as well. So you were been with us for the past 3 hours. Thank you so much for that kind of dedication and that kind of learning experience you have given to all those attendees here at Social Town. With this note, let me invite Ninu also onto the stage. Ninu, I'm just adding on the stage, and it's time to honor our guest Tama with a virtual memento presented with love to Tama from the Social Town. Here we go. We are receiving you stage and. Thank you so much, Tama, for being with us. And it's great. All sense of love to you from India. Thank you so much for traveling right to India and this session. Thanks so much. Soon we expect you to be in a physical event as well. Ninu, over to you.
So let's welcome our next speaker, Professor Fatai. Please make him a co-host now. Let me give a brief introduction about our next speaker. Fatai A. Badru is a professor and head of Social Work Department of University of Lagos, Nigeria. He is a registered general and psychiatric nurse, a PhD holder in medical sociology, and a member of the American Association of Public Health with certifications in chronic health conditions from the Stanford University. He is also the chairman, Transcultural and Social Psychiatry Research Group, Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Yaba. Fatai Badru has been a fellow at West African College of Nursing since 2005, Faculty of Mental Health and Psychiatric Nursing. Professor Badru is one of the 6 members of the West African Examination Board for the West African College of Nursing, the Apex Examination Board for Nurses in Africa and Diaspora. He is a certified and registered teacher with the Registered Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria, a trained journalist, a social work educator, and a registered medical social worker, among others. Professor Badru in February 2016 was awarded the Award of the Institute of Policy Management Development, and in August 2017 conferred with the highest honor by the Nigerian Institute of Management as a fellow. He has been a member of Nigerian Institute of Management since 1996. He has had several trainings in HIV or AIDS management and other, he is also a speaker of various events. It's a great pleasure to have him here, sir. The series all viewers, and sorry for the inconvenience happened, and he was waiting since the beginning.
Thank you so much, Ninu. And with all your love and appreciations, let me invite Professor Fatai Badru to the virtual stage.
Thank you very much. Can you share my slide? Good afternoon, good morning, good night. Ninu, can you share my slide?
Yes, can everyone?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Well, let's move on. Let's roll on. Yeah, distinguished panelists and eminent participants, good morning. Can you hear me? Good afternoon.
Yes.
Good evening, depending on where you are located. In Nigeria, it is late afternoon.
Yeah.
My name is Fatai Adesina Badru, a professor of medical and psychiatric social work at University of First Choice and Nation's Pride, University of Lagos, Nigeria. My Vice Chancellor, Professor Oluwatoyin T. Ogundupe, Fellow of Academy of Science, a multiple award winner, is a transformational leader with specialization in botany. He has keen interest in greener, human-centered, and inclusive environment. Next slide, please. Next slide. Nina, next slide.
Yes.
Next. Okay. Our concern in this program is to, before that, our concern in this, next before this, please. Nino, before this one.
Is it this what, sir?
No, the slide before this. Okay, yeah. Our concern in this program is to ruminate, reflect. Next, after this.
Yes, I've changed the slide.
After, okay, good. Our concern in this program is to ruminate, reflect, and make conscious effort on how to achieve a greener. You are too fast for the slide. I want to ensure that we get, a greener, human-centered, inclusive, and equal, prosperous world. I'm also requested to ponder and share some insight on how we can, as individual, group, organization, be more aware and align with sustainable development goals. To do justice to this, I've been told to trifurcate on the interface with personal information, role and responsibility in achieving the global goals, and how, as individual organization, can be more aware and aligned to the SDG. It's onto this tripod that my brief talk will center on. Next slide, please. Next slide,
I've changed present.
Okay, now, like it's been said there, I'm a passionate social worker educator, medical and health social worker, practitioner, and clinical nurse specialist with specialization in psychiatry and mental health nursing. I'm also a trained journalist, certified teacher, and an administrator, among others. I'm currently the servant leader of my department of social work, and individually and institutionally registered member of international associations of social work, a global body of social work educators in virtually all the regions of the world, founded in 1928. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, well, my qualification is as stated. I really don't need to delay myself on that because so let's look at my training and skills. I have a biopsychosocial training. These are training skills and strengths. I was one of the few Nigerians that successfully completed an intensive and comprehensive 1-week sexuality institute on reproductive and adolescent health. Before this, let me take care of my skill. Now, this had a lot of things with HIV/AIDS management, TOT on digital lecturing and webinar on COVID-19, and a number of things that have something to do with what we are trying to do today. I have a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary training in physical, social, and mental sciences. I also possess a broad experience in social and biomedical research design, implementation, and evaluation of multi-level intervention for improved health and social development outcome, community capacity development, and community-based participatory research and exploratory evaluation. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Yes, Professor.
Now, next slide. Okay, so I do not need to delay ourselves on this. These are 17 goals that have been stated, but my own concern is number 3. Now, let's move on. Because we all know this goal to end poverty, to end hunger, and so on and so forth. We all know these have been stated. There are pictures that have been displayed there. I just stated it in word. I've seen the picture on the behind Nino and others. So the 17 of them have been stated on this. So next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, now the strength of the SDG, unlike MDG, is that the former The former is all-inclusive, having 17 goals and 169 targets. It is argued there that the SDG cover key development issues, including root causes of poverty, gender, and socio-cultural inequalities. Although all the goals will indirectly affect the health and well-being of people directly or indirectly, only one of the goals focus on health, and that's goal 3, as we all know, to ensure healthy life and promote well-being for all at all ages. This is unlike MDGs, where 3 of these 8 goals are great health. MDG 3, sorry, let me move on. Let me dilate on that before this one. So MDG 3 to reduce child mortality, MD 4 to improve maternal health, and MDG 5 to combat HIV, AIDS, malaria, and other. Is this a strength or a weakness? Let's move on. We'll look at that issue later. Now, can we move on to the next slide, please, Nino? Now, where do I connect as an individual and a member of epistemic community? I want to reflect on one of these, like I said, goal 3. To be sure, I said earlier, SDG contains 17 goals, and I'm looking at SDG 3. Now, clearly the UN has indicated 13 targets and 28 indicators for SDG 3. I am more concerned with target 3.4 because there are quite a number of targets in this SDG 3, but I'm more concerned with target 3.4 and 3.5. 3.4 is saying reduce mortality, how to reduce deaths from non-communicable diseases and promote mental health. And target 3.5 is to prevent and treat substance abuse. Though some of my works and publications have transferred other targets and outcomes. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Next slide. Now, as we read in Wikipedia, the full text of target 3.4 is this. By 2030, the target from 2015 to 2030, that it is targeted or aimed that by 2030, we'll have been able to reduce premature mortality. So let me deal with these targets first, please. Okay, that we'll have been able to reduce premature mortality from NCD through prevention and treatment and promote mental health and well-being. That is United Nations for us. Now, the indicator for this target is that mortality rate attributed to cardiovascular disease, cancers, diabetes, and chronic respiratory disease will be taken care of. And then indicator 3.42 says that suicide mortality rate. I work on these 2 indicators. Just on Thursday, April 8th, I presented a lecture to the Military College of Nursing on respiratory diseases. And in 2019, several lectures were presented on suicide prevention in Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Yaba, Lagos, Nigeria. We observed that quite a number of people were taking snippets, they were taking drugs, and they were committing suicide. Some of them would jump into lagoon, and we're trying to find out whether it is actually due to socioeconomic pressure and so on and so forth. So we try to interrogate, we try to take care of that, give lectures, give awareness, did quite a number of that in order to reduce things. Now, the full test for target 3.5 is to strengthen the prevention and treatment of substance abuse, including narcotic drug abuse and harmful use of alcohol. Tramadol, one of those substances that people abuse. Children, adolescents, youth tend to abuse this drug, and this gives a lot of concern for us. So let's look at the next slide, please. Next slide, please.
It's Professor.
Yeah. Now, indicator, we have looked at the target. Let's now look at the indicators. Now, indicator 3.51, coverage of treatment interventions. Pharmacological. I am dealing with not pharmacological. I dealt more with psychosocial support. I volunteered in Lagos State, really during COVID, for the frontline healthcare workers. I went to isolation center, gave them some lectures, and tried to give them how to reduce stress, exercises, how to sleep, how to think less of the problem that their loved one have had in terms of the lost grief, mourning, and so on and so forth. Rehabilitation is also very important. The aftercare services for those individuals who have had substance use disorders. Now, indicator 3.52 suggests that harmful use of alcohol. Alcohol is the commonest substance of abuse in Nigeria. People abuse it so much. And so we try to see what and what can be done. Define according to national context there as alcohol per consumption, age 15 years and above. Sorry, before then, can we move on before this? Next slide, please. Next slide. Aha. I'm talking about indicator 3.52. Before remark, let me deal with, I hope I'm still within time. I'm trying to keep to time. Now, I'm saying that we have indicator 3.52, which is harmful use of alcohol, defined according to national context as alcohol per consumption, age 15 years and older, within a calendar year in liter of pure alcohol. And I said, alcohol is very common. I've had quite a number of publications on youth, alcohol, substance use disorder, drug abuse, and so on and so forth. And these have been published in journal. Now, Nigeria is a signatory. Nigeria is one of the 46 countries who partook in what we call Voluntary National Review, VNR, and focus on 7 SDG. SDG 1, which is poverty, SDG 3, which is my own concern, health and well-being, SDG 4, which is education, I'm also involved in that, SDG 5, which is gender and equality, SDG 8, which is inclusive economy, SDG 16, which is enabling environment, or peace and security. Again, we know we have quite a number of issues along that line, bandit, kidnapping, Boko Haram, and so on and so forth. And then SDG 17 is about partnership. So Nigeria is concerned about these 6 areas. Now, let me recast, remind ourselves what WHO has said. What is health? Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not necessarily an absence of disease or infirmity. Again, very utopian definition, though, but really it has a lot of utility value for a number of us. Somebody can be healthy mentally. What about the physical dimension? What about health? What about social dimension? These are issues that we need to. What about the spiritual dimension? These are things that we need to look at. Now, let's move on to the next slide, please. Next slide. And that will take us to some remarks. We should note before this one, let's first the first remark. The first remark, please. Okay, we should know that health has only one universal aim. To ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. In achieving this, a critical attention should be placed on health system strengthening, system thinking, commonization, what I call commonization of services, which ensure accessibility. In other words, healthcare services should be accessible. It should be affordable. That's affordability. If someone, even if the healthcare is accessible, if someone cannot afford it, it's a big issue. And if it's not available, even if you can afford it, then what are we talking about? Adequate funding of the health system, discouraging medical tourism. Our head of state has just gone to UK, when we can strengthen our healthcare system here. And then full integration of services with total dismantling of physical programs across the world, building gigantic structures without considering the end users and their felt need is not sustainable. We're talking about how we can have sustainable healthcare. The national health insurance system should be reinvigorated, and health maintenance organization, SSC, should be called. Most times, all these HMO try to get a lot of money from the client and consumer. At the end of the day, there's limited or nothing that end user gets from there. So let's move on to the next slide, please.
Yes, sir.
Now, this is the single health goal, like we said, is to have a call to unify integrated health services delivery approach. This paradigm shift from multiple vertical programming goal should be seen as golden opportunity to treat health and health-related issues as a single holistic issue. I want to say here, because this has to do with some of our roles that we have played to create awareness, to create action, education, and so on and so forth, as Ninon has asked us to do. I've been a resource person in Nigeria to facilitate National Health Conference in a number, especially in 2006. I also wrote the advocacy and technical report for Nigeria, together with Dr. Solomojo, who is a dentist. And beyond that, I've been engaged in several multidisciplinary researches, including socioeconomic. One of those or two are what we call socioeconomic fingerprint, geospatial mapping with Professor Barbara Odin from University of Bath. Then another one is COVID-19 evaluation and best practice of the sanitation efficacy of VVS with application to both services and wastewater in informal setting. And the team lead is Professor Catherine Osman from the Montfield University, UK. Now, I'm also a reviewer of quite a number of journals, including Journal of Medicine, Science, and Technology, editor-in-chief of Western Journal of Nursing, among quite a number of others in Florida, in Canada, in Nigeria, and so on and so forth. Can we move on to the next slide, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, you see, because of time, so I will give room for a number of people to ask questions. It's argued here that all healthcare practitioners, NGOs, policymakers, and development partners have a shake of hand to face the challenges of health system. This can be done by working synergistically and tangentially toward better health outcomes globally. Health system bureaucracy should be tamed. I've had publications in 2019. Health should be passed. You know, we have mental health bill that has been the National Assembly in Nigeria for a long period of time. We are still operating quite a number of old archaic laws. So this should be passed to allow inclusive and affordable care to persons with mental and behavioral disorders. Some myth and stigmatization about mental health and disorders should be addressed. Indigenous healthcare system that is efficacious and evidence-based should be integrated into the orthodox healthcare system. Our publication in this area, 2011, 16, 17, and so on and so forth. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. No, before then, before I conclude. No, before epilogue. Now, I want to say that using the fulcrum of SDG 3 as a case study, we need to have a checklist, and we need to work consistently, assiduously, and strategically, and with all hands on desk. I believe that we are thinking about the next 9 years. That I have a dream that in the next 9 years, if we look at these targets, if we look at these indicators, and we put quite a number of things in place, I think we can achieve desirable outcome for SDG 3. It's therefore my dream that this is achievable. I want to thank you for your attention so that people can ask questions, comments, and all that. Then I can then contribute towards. I'm passionate about healthcare. I'm passionate about non-communicable disease. Beyond the fact that communicable disease is also very important, just like corona. But because healthcare, in terms of the target and the indicators, have been very well initiated by UN, I want to align with that. And I've also said that Nigeria has a 7 focal area, and SDG 3 happened to be one of them. So I belong to a university epistemic community that tries to propagate education, knowledge, and so on and so forth. Beyond the fact that I'm also a clinician to take care of client patients. And I've had, what Ninu didn't say is that I've had close to 41 years of experience in that. I work in the psychiatric setting for 18 years before academia. So I still go there as the chairman of Transcultural Research Group. I want to thank everybody for your attention, and I have a dream that we'll get there. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share my random talk. Nino and the organizer, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Vatai, for being with us, delivering a lecture for us on sustainable development goals. So once again, let me ask Ninu to honor our guest with a visual memento. Here we go. Hope the screen is visible.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much, Professor Patai, sir, for being
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. Before we stop the maybe we'll call it the day, I need to share one video that is more aligned with Sustainable Development Goal and why we need to take a call for sustainable development and why it's high time that we need to we need to support an era of
We can be.
We must be
The first generation to end extreme poverty.
The generation
Most determined
to fight injustice and inequalities.
The generation that saves the planet from climate change.
And this is how it will get done. The global goals.
A 15-year plan
For everyone, everywhere.
with no one left behind.
We will live in a world
where nobody
anywhere
lives in extreme poverty.
Where no one
goes hungry.
Where no one wakes in the morning.
We live in a world where
Diseases we know how to cure. And where healthcare
is a lifelong right for us all.
We will live in a world where
Everyone goes to school.
and education gives us the knowledge
And skills.
for a fulfilling life.
We will live in a world where all girls and all women have equal opportunities to thrive
and be powerful and safe.
we cannot succeed if half the world is held back.
We will live in a world
where all people can get clean water
And proper toilets at home,
at school and at work.
We will live in a world where there's sustainable energy for everyone.
Heat, light,
and power for the whole planet.
Without destroying the planet.
We will live in a world where economies prosper.
A new wealth
leads to decent jobs
For everyone.
and we will live in a world where our industry,
Our infrastructure and our
best innovations
are not just used to make money, but to make all our lives better.
we will live in a world
Where prejudices and extremes of inequality
Are defeated.
inside our countries
And between different countries.
where people live in cities and communities
that are safe, progressive,
and support everyone who lives there.
where we replace
What we consume. Planet where we put back what we take out of the earth.
We live in a world that is decisively rolling back the threat of climate
change.
where we restore and protect the life in our oceans and seas.
will restore and protect
Life on land,
The forests.
animals,
The earth itself.
with peace between and inside countries.
Where all governments are open.
And answer to us for what they do at home and abroad.
And the justice rules.
with everyone equal before the law.
Where all countries and we their people
Work together.
partnerships of all kinds
to make these goals a reality.
These are the United Nations global goals.
For sustainable development.
Let's get to work.
So tell everyone, I am an advocate of sustainable development goal. Just fix which is your goal, which you're going to advocate in your ecosystem. When I say, when it comes to Ninu and the social town, it is we advocate for partnership goals. We think it's collaborative atmosphere, collaborative ecosystem where we grow together, holding our hands together and moving up to a positive world. So knowingly or unknowingly, each and every one of us is doing some kind of sustainable development goal for much more sustainability. We as a human can contribute much more to be a sustainable goal. It's our complete responsibility because animals, trees are already into sustainable world. Only thing it's a human need to contribute something to help this planet, the animals, the birds, the environment, the atmosphere to develop a progressive goal in sustainable development. Let's be an advocate of sustainable development goal. And thank you so much for all these participants for having with us today. Ninu, before I go for word of thanks, I just wanted your closing remarks of the day. And from then I'll take my word of thanks.
Okay, it was a great learning experience for me. What we have learned is we have to start from the micro level. So from where we cook our food, from everything, each and every step, we need to be really conscious about. It is not just about the government or policymakers or the very big corporates. It's about us. It's about us. We need to start from ourselves. We need to think. We need to be consciously, put efforts to make it really happen. 2030 goals. So we have already, it's less than 9 years now, and the COVID is also added to the equation. And when you look at the numbers, you can see that 800, 900 million people are still in poverty while we are discussing here now. So it's a long, long, long journey. It's not really easy, like as we sit here and talk. So let's put some conscious effort. Let's start from ourselves in the very, very micro level, and let's spread this, start from the awareness. So even Social Town would like to take it forward more, engaging conversation and lessons and more collaboration. As Rahul rightly said, we are providing a platform for everyone to enable and connections. It's all about collaborate, innovate, and impact. So we are acting as a catalyst here. So we will continue what we are doing with more power and energy from the support from each and every one of you. I cannot thank enough for the support, for each and every activity of the Social Town. We are also very startup. We are just months old, but the support we are receiving is enormous. That's why we are continuing this kind of activities. So thank you so much, and let's have more conversations and more actions and more conscious efforts.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you, Ninu. And we have recently shared a petition advocating quality education to be into the curriculum, which is shared by our good member Duke Sentape from Nigeria, and we have shared it, and the petitions are signed. Let's hope that this petition is going to reach its limit, and this is going to be one big change where Social Town can also be part of it. And with this, let me thank all my dear participants who have been here right from 5 o'clock this evening, and now it's almost 9:50, 9:30, and tomorrow is Monday. Monday is a working day, Sunday is a holiday, and you're all prepared, maybe probably from India, not from US, because US, you people are okay. When we have Monday, you have got Sunday, so Sunday is a holiday. So thank you so much, Professor Fatai Badru, for being with us and delivering a wonderful talk on sustainable development goal. Thank you so much, Tamaka Rael, Director of Senior Environmental Consultant of Envilo Limited, for giving us a whole lot of insights into sustainable development. Big thanks to Moore Hazantage, Program Manager of Startups for Sustainable Development at Google, and big thanks to Doran Gift, SDG Coordinator, EN Sustainable Development Network. Thanks to Gayatri Chauhan, Founder and CEO of Bazonair. And thank you so much, Dr. Labhumudra Priyadarshini Ma'am, GM Sustainability and Community Relations from Aditya Birla Group, and the founder of the Social Ripples. And thank you, Chandrika Bahadur, Director, SDG Academy, UN Sustainable Development Network. And a big thanks once again, Ninu, thank you so much for organizing this wonderful program, because I don't know where you get all these ideas to organize these events, and when you have time to sleep. It's almost 24 hours a day, and if you could say 24 hours a day, 24 into 30 days, I don't know how much hours you sleep. 24, you are available 24 into 7. See, I have seen a lot of boards. This ATM is available 24 into 7. Likewise, Ninu is always available 24 into 7, thinking of this progressive development to all those people, to the community, the ecosystem. One big kudos to you for please continue the spirit, please continue the good work, and we are all here to support you in any aspects we can do. And once again, a big thanks to the pillar. Where is that pillar? I'm missing that pillar. The pillar, can you come up, please?
Just not feeling well.
Okay. I understand it's about Angel I was speaking about, and she's one kind of a pillar of Social Town who coordinates, who organizes the programs. And one big thanks to Rashmi. Last time when we had a program, You were just attending the program during travel, and it seems, I hope I made it correct. And today you are all here to attend the entire session. Thank you so much for the enduring support you give the Social Town. And Angel, for a moment you switched on your camera. Thank you so much for being with us. And thank you, Tama. You're still here. Big thanks from all of us, because you just came here at 5 o'clock and even the entire session. You are just awesome. A big kudos to you all now from India. And two big thanks to our regular participants, none other than Arjun Shankar and Bhavya. Both of you, we cannot afford to miss you both, because all our programs automatically, my eye goes in search of you both. Where is Bhavya and where is Arjun?
Thank you, Rahul, but you have penalized me with 5,000 rupees for interrupting you. Sorry for that.
Yes. No,
but we have friends from Africa as well. Olabisi is one of great support person from Nigeria. She's also at all our programs. She's a great support. Other friends from Nigeria, and Sina Seriak, my left hand. Angel, me, and Sina is running the whole show. So I cannot miss Sina. She is handling the.
No, I'm coming to that. I'm not at over. It's my flow. I'm going in. And thank you, Sina, once again. It's hardly to see your face, but I know behind the show you are behind the curtain all the time, but you are putting down whole lot of effort, whole lot of big shows to make the event as graceful as anything. See, sometimes each time we have been hosting the Social Town event, each day, each time it's getting better and better and better. It's a whole lot of learning experience we are getting for sure. And Sina, you're one among that behind the screen. Thank you so much for your enduring support to the Social Town. Though you work for Social Town, this is a virtual event. You know how much effort it takes. You are always there to ready to put that effort. Thank you so much for that. And Olabisi, of course, you're also being part of all our events and continuously supporting us. Thank you so much for with us being a constant support. And probably there's a big doubt for everyone, probably in the Social Town. Do the Social Town has a branch in Nigeria? I just want to say this one thing: we don't have branches anywhere. We have branches only in India and only in Kerala. But of course,
but we have members all over the world.
Yes, we have mentors. We have TSTNs all across the world, and soon, every nook and every corner of this world has one TST club. And this is going to be a largest ecosystem of community builders. Mark my word. This is my promise.
So yes. I make humble request each and everyone, those who have joined from other countries, or if you are interested to be a part of this for a long journey, please let us know. We can have more Social Town clubs everywhere, more engaging conversations like this, and more actions. So yeah, please join us.
Don't worry, and where you organize the program, my hosting is absolutely free for you. Or else I used to charge 5 lakh per session. Okay, when for all the first events, I am getting completely free, discounted price, and from the second event, I'm getting a discounted price of about 25 lakhs per hour. Great. That's a big thing, because today I doesn't have too much of funny conversations. So each day, thank you, Aditi. Thank you so much for putting me in. Yeah, just I'll share my account number, share 25 lakhs. Thank you.
Rahul, that is a beautiful thing to put up. And congratulations for TEDx Kanyakumari.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Because all this happened because of TST. It started from TST. It goes along with TST. And one day, when I am part of this air, I will be part of TST. That's what my word. That was a very emotional statement I have given. Please, I need a drop of tears from your eyes. Yeah, great. Thank you, Bhavya. Thank you so much for that. Azuma, thank you so much for that.
And you're the brother of TST, so how can I, thank you?
Yeah, I'm coming to that. I'm not at over. And a big thanks to Rahul. Rahul, you're just wonderful. You are just amazing. You are so great. You are so auspicious. We have no words to express your sincere thanks to Rahul. You are great.
You're the best thing happened to TST. You're one of the best.
No, of course. I still remember the day when I was trying to approach you. meeting like-minded people is absolutely difficult. And traveling along with like-minded people is extremely difficult. And so you are one kind of a woman who always, in all aspects, you see, you are there to support, you are there to go ahead, you are there to make a move. In any sense, how I cannot be a part of it, how I can keep myself aside without supporting you. That's my big question. So please don't consider me as a second man. Don't worry, your lifetime discount for you. No price, zero price will come from you. So TST had bring a lot of positivity. Other than that, Ninu has a lot of positivity. This TST has a lot of positivity. The club has a lot of positivity. Lot of things. Why I cannot express myself. I will get emotional when I speak all these things. Once again, thank you so much, all dear participants, for being here. I hope I had missed out anyone. All dear participants, I have about 20 for now. Rashmi, Angel, Tama, Blackberry, Alabesi, Amrita, Saurabh, Sei, Munir, Aditi, Joel, Ravindra, Lakshmi Narayan, Madhubala, Sina, Ochku, Azuma, and 2LC India. Thank you, all of you. Thank you so much for spending your time. And most of you, almost 20 of you, probably 10, 15 of you were right from the beginning. Thank you. Thank you, Madhubala. You're trying to speak something, but there's an internet connectivity issue. So before going for national anthem, any words from anyone? Do you want to speak?
Yes,
Someone want to speak?
So we are happy to anyone, any comments, any suggestions for improvement or anything, any thoughts you can share about this.
How do we move on from here? I think it's important to, after all this, we need to have a position that, look, achieving that, let's look at the target, let's look at the indicators. We can look at those countries that are presented today, and we can charge Nino and others to see what are the milestones, what are the checklists. And maybe in 6 months, maybe in 1 year, we still have 9 years. We have 9 years for before 2030. So we can give ourselves a job to say, like, maybe in 6 months, in 1 year, in 2 years, we put quite a number of things in place, a number of things in place to ensure that India, Nigeria, Canada, UK, how far have they gone with target? We can even say, look, let them take SDG 1 to 4 or thereabout, whatever she cares to choose. I, for instance, have chosen SDG 3, and we can then monitor maybe about 5 countries to do a comparative analysis. And we can then review and compare notes, publish this for public consumption. These are some of my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much for that words. Any other closing remarks for someone before we go for the national anthem? Bhavya, you want to? Yeah, Bhavya has to say something. Yes, you are on mute.
So first and foremost, the speakers were really amazing. Ninu, thank you so much for the valuable insights this Sunday evening. And I would say that Social Town Talk series is going bigger and better day by day. And you are the pillar of strength behind that. You, Ninu, Sina, and everyone, Rahul, especially with the host. And the positivity is what it's attracting all of us to come again and again and again. And please keep doing the good work. Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you so much, Bhavya. You, and of course, you're an amazing participant. And whenever Social Town is releasing its official merchandise, and you are going to get one merchandise free of cost, for sure.
Yeah. Sure,
and then Ninu is writing everything in a piece
I am
of paper.
family. I will definitely take it from Ninu anyway.
Yes. So thank you for all volunteers who have supported us, Ola Bizay, Joel, and others from Nigeria, who are spreading the word, for being with us. So Professor is still here, Rashmi and Tama ma'am, each and everyone. I thank each and everyone from the bottom of my heart. Let's meet next month with another interesting topic, and let's have meaningful conversation. As Professor said, we have to set some milestones and we have to check the progress. Let's work together. Yes, let's put some conscious effort.
Definitely, we are all Social Town members. We are very excited for next edition. And let's now all stand for an Indian national anthem. Thank you so much, everyone.
Great. So
With this, yeah, Nina, go ahead, please.
yeah, let's call it today because it's already,
It's
late.
already 9:30 and tomorrow is a Monday. Tomorrow is working day. You need to have a good dinner. Please take a rest. And as per the event studies, a big request to Ninu, at least today have deep sleep, at least up to early morning, 4 o'clock tomorrow. So take a rest, and then health is wealth, of course. We need you healthy, fit for very, 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 very long time. So take care of health as well. So we request everyone to have a good dinner. Of course, if it is an offline event, definitely we would have arranged a dinner. Thanks, it is a virtual event. That's why I'm saying this.
No, if you go to Kanyakumari, definitely you will give.
Of course, please, once you coming down to Kanyakumari, please let me know. I will have my different travel plan, traveling somewhere in North India. Don't worry on that. Thank you so much once again. So big good night from all of us here at the Social Town. Let's a big thanks, big good night. What do we call Satsrikal? Not Satsrikal. Good night.
Shubhratri, Shubhratri.
Shubhratri, yes, Shubhratri. Thank you so much. It's a goodbye or good night from all of us here at the Social Town until we meet again.
Yes.
This is Rahul signing off for the day. Let's take a snap. Request everyone to switch on their cameras, please. Please switch on your cameras and have stay cheese. We take a couple of snaps. Thank you for that. Hope I think Ninu is also taking.
No, I couldn't take it. Someone take my picture, please.
I'm taking no, but I don't know how to take a photo in my camera. I'm not a camera-istic man. I was just joking. Of course, done. Great. Once again, one more snap, please. One more snap. Smile. Dr. Sheikh Rahmat B, ma'am, you are not visible for some time, even though your camera is on.
Yes.
Great. Arjun, ready? Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Say cheese. Gone. Thank you so much. You've got that.
Yay.
Thank you so much, and let's call it as a day. So by already it's 9:30.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night.
Good day. Good evening. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor. Bye, everyone. Good night.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Rahul, is there any way can I get the chat skills? Is there any way?
What? Chat screen?
I mean, no, chats. Everybody was asking for information about, contact details and all. Can we possible?
അതിന്റെ സ്ക്രീൻഷോട്ട് എടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ടല്ലോ പിന്നെ
എല്ലാത്തിനും
എല്ലാം എടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ട്.
Jai Angel Joseph.
Okay. Good night. Good morning and good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Everyone can.
So we will